Chapter 1349, I'll let you die in peace today. Chapter 1349, I'll let you die in peace today. The skies above Baiming Town. Nangong Yu and three nascent soul old men flew over on a gigantic spirit vessel with a murderous intent. Dermic powers rumbled around the three nascent souls with a rampant might. The moment they arrived in Baiming Town, a series of exclamations sounded. Over the years, the Baiming clan had been declining. Most of the people from the three aristocratic families that came to the town to show off were juniors, foundation establishment cultivators and golden cores. Nascent souls rarely appeared. But now that three nascent souls had arrived, the pressure on the cultivators of Baiming Town increased immensely. Three nascent souls at the same time. They're definitely hostile. Those three nascent souls look murderous. I wonder why they're here. Blood will probably be spilled today. I wonder which family is the unlucky one. They seem to be heading for Baiming Shue's courtyard. Some Baiming clansmen discussed softly. Right then, many cultivators who were cultivating in the main hall of the clan sensed the commotion outside and came forth. Baiming Ao stood in the crowd and looked into the distance. His expression changed starkly. "Sister!" Baiming Ao exclaimed. He could clearly see that the gigantic spirit vessel in midair stopped above their house and four people walked down. Nangong Yu was one of them. The other three were nascent souls. Baiming Ao pushed through the crowd and charged over. However, he had barely run a few steps when his arm was grabbed by a withered palm. "Don't go over." A skinny old man behind Baiming Ao shouted. "Clan leader, don't hold me back. Nangong Yu and the others are hostile. I have to go take a look." Baiming Ao was anxious and shouted. "There's no point in you heading over." The Baiming clan leader shook his head. "Your combat strength might be able to match Nangong Yu, but he has three nascent souls with him. Nascent souls can manipulate dermic powers and kill you with a single thought." "But that's my sister." Baiming Ao continued struggling. However, the Baiming clan leader was a nascent soul after all. He used his dermic powers as a thread to hold Baiming Ao back tightly and not let him pass. "Child, this matter is not simple." The Baiming clan leader looked into the distance and whispered, "Look over there, there are three other experts walking over. If I'm not wrong, the man from the Nangong aristocratic family in the middle should be at the Void Reversion Realm." Psst. The surrounding young cultivators gasped and their expressions changed. The Void Reversion Realm was truly out of reach for them. It could be said that a Void Reversion could annihilate Baiming Town with a single thought, leaving no one alive. How long has it been since a Void Reversion has been in the town? What happened to alarm the Void Reversions of the Nangong aristocratic family? Baiming Shui is most likely doomed. "I hope we won't be implicated." Some of the Baiming clansmen whispered with wary expressions. Baiming Ao's body trembled slightly and his eyes were bloodshot. The Baiming clansmen sighed internally. "Child, let's wait and see. If this Void Reversion wants to harm Baiming Shui, it's useless even if you rush over. You might even die there. If this Void Reversion expert has no intention of harming Baiming Shui, it's the same even if you don't go." Although that was the case, it was immense torture and pain for Baiming Ao to have to see his sister face Nangong Yu, nascent souls and even a Void Reversion alone. Baiming Ao's eyes were bloodshot and his breathing turned heavy. Gritting his teeth, he said, "If anything happens to my sister, I'll definitely make them pay with their lives." At that moment, Nangong Yu and the three nascent souls had already descended and landed in Baiming Shue's courtyard. Because of the high wall, Baiming Ao and the others naturally could not see what was going on inside. However, the more that was the case, the more tormented Baiming Ao felt. "Sigh, I hope that Baiming Shui will be blessed by the heavens." The Baiming clan leader sighed. In truth, he knew that it was definitely not a small matter if even a Void Reversion was alarmed. Baiming Shui was most likely doomed. Outside Baiming Town. The blue-robed man and the other two were in no hurry to enter Baiming Town. Instead, they stood on a cloud and looked down at the small town. "This is Baiming Town?" The white-robed woman lamented. "To think that even an aristocratic family that was comparable to you guys in the ancient era would end up in such a state." "That's right. In such a small town, the strongest are nascent souls. What secrets can there be?" The lively girl shook her head. Initially she was looking forward to it. But now this small town looked ordinary. The cultivators in the town were bullied by the three aristocratic families all year round. There was no vigor and it was lifeless. Hanyin Xian Xian, Let's head over as well and see what's the background of that outsider. The blue-robed man pointed in the direction of Nangong Yu and the others not far away. Yes, the white-robed woman nodded. The three of them rode on auspicious clouds and floated towards Baiming Shui's courtyard in a flash. Before they arrived, the three of them looked down. The courtyard was not big and did not have many decorations. A green-robed man sat in the middle with an indifferent expression while a slender girl stood behind him. That girl is so beautiful. The lively girl could not help but exclaim. The moment she said that, the lively girl felt her legs give way and she nearly fell from the auspicious cloud. Senior brother Nangong, what are you doing? You can't even control the auspicious clouds at the sight of a beauty? Senior sister Hanyin, you've got to control him properly. The lively girl grumbled. However, no one replied. The air seemed to have frozen and the atmosphere turned strange. She turned around and saw the blue-robed man and white-bloused woman looking down in shock and disbelief. The blue-robed man's lips trembled as he stuttered, "You? What?" The lively girl followed their gazes and looked into the courtyard. When she caught sight of the green-robed man, she jumped up from her auspicious cloud in fright. In the courtyard. Arriving before Su Zimo, Nangong Yu swept his gaze across Su Zimo and Baiming Shui and sneered, "No wonder you're so brazen, slut. So you found a helper. How should I address you, fellow Taoist?" Nangong Yu asked eccentrically. Su Zimo replied calmly, "My name is Su Zimo." "Oh, I've never heard of you before." Nangong Yu shrugged with a disdainful expression. The three nascent soul old men reared their heads in laughter as well. "A year ago my father and two old servants died outside Baiming town. Do you know about this?" Nangong Yu glared at Su Zimo and asked slowly. "I killed them," Su Zimo said indifferently. Baiming Shui's heart skipped a beat. The 3 storage bags given to her by her master a year ago were indeed from the Nangong aristocratic family. You have a death wish. Initially, Nangong Yu wanted to test the waters. However, he had not expected Su Zimo to admit to it without hiding anything. "Make way." Right then, a soft shout sounded from behind Nangong Yu. The blue-robed man and the other 2 had already descended and were walking over quickly. Nangong Yu looked at Su Zimo as though he was looking at a dead man and said menacingly, "Su Zimo, Uncle Ling is a void reversion that I invited. I'll let you die in peace today." Chapter 1350 Grand, Uncle Master? Chapter 1350, Grand, Uncle Master? Void reversion. Initially, Baiming Shui had immense confidence in Su Zimo. However, her heart skipped a beat when she heard that the intruder was a void reversion. Instantly, she turned nervous and glared at the blue-robed man fixedly. Void reversions were practically out of reach for her and were existences she had to look up to. This Uncle Ling had an extraordinary bearing. He was clearly a direct descendant of the Nangong aristocratic family. In Baiming Shui's opinion, no matter how strong Su Zimo was, he was probably not a match for a void reversion. In fact, she was prepared to take on everything. As she thought, the blue-robed man and the 2 women had already arrived before her with excited expressions. Suddenly, the blue-robed man paused and turned to look at Nangong Yu beside him, asking slowly, "Who did you say you wanted to kill?" "Him?" Nangong Yu pointed at Su Zimo with an arrogant expression. "You must have a death wish." The blue-robed man swung in reverse and hollered, slapping Nangong Yu heavily on the cheek. Piak! The power of that slap was so great that Nangong Yu was sent flying from the spot. He rolled dozens of feet away and half of his cheek was swollen with his bones shattered. The change was extremely sudden. Even the tense Baiming Shui was shocked, let alone Nangong Yu who was caught off guard. Her first reaction was that the other party had hit the wrong person. However, an even more shocking scene unfolded. The blue-robed man bowed deeply to Su Zimo and greeted respectfully, "Greetings, Granduncle Master." The 3 nascent soul old men were dumbfounded and their jaws almost dropped to the ground. "Grand, Uncle Master." Baiming Shui blinked and her mind was in chaos. She had a calm personality and could maintain her composure even if her life was hanging by a thread. However, she had lost her composure at this moment. Could it be that this Uncle Ling had not only hit the wrong person, but recognized a wrong person as well? "Oh Nangong Ling." Su Zimo glanced at the blue-robed man and said indifferently. The blue-robed man was the disciple of Tao Lord Scarlet Star who was under extreme fire. Back when Su Zimo brought extreme fire back to 100 Refinement Sect, he came across Nangong Ling's group of 3 who was encircled by Hellfire Hall. Back then, Su Zimo had already sensed a pride in Nangong Ling's bones, as though he came from an extraordinary background. To think that he came from 3 aristocratic families. Behind Nangong Ling were Lu Hanyan and Ru Xian from the past. Given the seniority of Extreme Fire's lineage, Nangong Ling and the other 2 indeed had to address Su Zimo as Granduncle Master. Greetings, Granduncle Master. Lu Hanyan's white robes fluttered as she walked forward as well. She suppressed the excitement in her eyes and bowed deeply. Ru Xian cared even less. She leaned forward and said in surprise, Granduncle Master, it's great that you're still alive. We thought that something had happened to you and were sad for a long time. She was honest and straightforward, saying whatever she thought. Nangong Yu had just struggled to get up from the ground and was stunned when he saw that. Uncle Ling addressed this man as Granduncle Master? What was the seniority of this man? Could Su Zimo be someone from the Nangong aristocratic family as well? Nangong Yu's head hurt to begin with after being slapped. Now that he was confused, his entire head felt like it was about to explode. The 3 nascent soul old men that followed him had ugly expressions. They did not think so much. All they knew was that if Su Zimo was Nangong Ling's Granduncle Master, they would have struck a steel board. Bai Mingshui was confused. She could tell that Nangong Ling and the other 2 did not greet Su Zimo ceremonially as they would towards elders. Instead, they had heartfelt respect and concern. Master's methods are truly amazing. They're totally unexpected and unpredictable. Bai Mingshui lamented internally. Granduncle Master, why are you here in the south region? Nangong Ling asked respectfully, you should have told me beforehand that you were coming to the south region. I would have picked you up personally. He had truly submitted completely to Su Zimo. Back in the Middle Continent, Su Zimo saved their lives. Lu Hanyan looked at Su Zimo's expression and asked softly with a worried expression, Granduncle Master, are you injured? You don't look well. I can't activate my essence spirit because of the injuries sustained in Heaven and Earth Valley. Right now, I can't use dermic powers either. Su Zimo replied casually without hiding anything. Bai Mingshui's heart skipped a beat as a thought flashed through her mind. Su Zimo's words earlier on seemed to have revealed an extremely important piece of information. However, that thought disappeared in a flash and she could not figure it out. Granduncle Master, how do we resolve your injuries? What elixirs do you need? Tell me. I'll ask my family and definitely think of a way to get my hands on it. Nangong Ling said. Su Zimo shook his head. There's nothing much I can do. The 3 aristocratic families definitely did not have the primordial divine spring. Otherwise, news of it would have long spread in the cultivation world. Granduncle Master, what are you doing in Baiming Town? This is? Nangong Ling's gaze landed on Bai Mingshui as he asked carefully. This is my eldest disciple Bai Mingshui. Su Zimo said indifferently. Ah. Nangong Ling was slightly stunned. However, he reacted quickly and bowed to Bai Mingshui hurriedly. Greetings, Aunt Master. The change earlier on was truly too fast and Bai Mingshui had yet to digest it completely. Now that a direct descendant of the Nangong aristocratic family who was also a void reversion bowed and greeted her, she was shocked. She turned slightly and waved her hand. Senior, there's no need for that. Greetings, Aunt Master. Right then Lu Hanyan bowed to Bai Mingshui as well. Ru Xian shouted with a grin as well. Be it Lu Hanyan, Ru Xian or Nangong Ling, their statuses in cultivation realms were far above Bai Mingshui. Now that the 3 of them were bowing to her at the same time, she truly felt uneasy. It's fine. Su Zimo glanced sideways and nodded to Bai Mingshui. You're my eldest disciple, so you're naturally senior to them. There's no need to feel burdened. Just accept it. Bai Mingshui only adapted gradually after hearing Su Zimo's consolation. There's no need to stand on courtesy, everyone. Rise. Thank you, Aunt Master. Nangong Ling and the others bowed before standing up. In 100 refinement sect, etiquette and seniority were extremely important. Right then Nangong Ling took out a shimmering silver inner armor from his storage bag and handed it to Bai Mingshui. Aunt Master, this is a defensive inner armor that I refined personally. It's a perfect grade spirit weapon. Please accept it. This gift is way too precious. Bai Mingshui blushed and declined hurriedly. Perfect spirit weapons were extremely rare in the cultivation world. Even cultivators of the 3 aristocratic families did not have many people who could possess perfect grade spirit weapons, let alone her. At the side, Nangong Yu felt a sense of envy when he saw that. He had been in the Golden Core realm for so long but only possessed a supreme-grade spirit weapon. However, it was broken by Baiming Shui. He did not even have a chance to obtain a perfect spirit weapon. Chapter 1351, Reduced to Ashes. Chapter 1351, Reduced to Ashes. Baiming Shui looked at Su Zimo pleadingly. Accept it? Su Zimo nodded calmly. It was nothing much for his eldest disciple to accept a perfect-grade spirit weapon. His essence spirit could not be used and he could not open his storage bag. Otherwise, he would have been able to take out at least 10 Khanate spirit weapons from his storage bag. When she heard Su Zimo's words, Baiming Shui took the silver inner armor. Even with her steady personality, her eyes revealed a hint of joy. The Baiming aristocratic family had a deep foundation as well. However, after being oppressed by the 3 aristocratic families all these years, their foundation had long been exhausted. The Khanate, perfect and supreme-grade spirit weapons passed down by the Baiming aristocratic family had long been snatched away by the cultivators of the 3 aristocratic families. Right now, it was already rare for cultivators of Baiming Town to possess a superior-grade spirit weapon. Lu Hanyin and Ru Xian took out 2 perfect-grade spirit weapons from their storage bags and handed them over. Baiming Shui hesitated for a moment before taking them. Baiming Shui looked at the 3 perfect spirit weapons in her hands and felt as though she was in a dream. It was surreal. Earlier on, she was still that inferior existence of the Baiming clan. But now, because she had taken Su Zimo as her master, even a void reversion of the Nangong aristocratic family had to address her respectfully as Aunt Master. Just who in the world is my master? A doubt flashed through Baiming Shui's mind. We were on the same side the entire time. Senior, I'm also someone of the Nangong aristocratic family. Nangong Yu walked over warily. His cheeks were swollen and he could not speak clearly. However, he forced a smile. Greetings, Senior. I'm Nangong Yu. His reaction was extremely fast. When he saw that the situation was not right, he lowered his head hurriedly and bowed to Su Zimo. My surname isn't Nangong and I'm not from the Nangong aristocratic family. Su Zimo did not stand up and merely looked at Nangong Yu coldly. Nangong Yu's expression froze. Initially, he thought that Su Zimo must definitely be someone of the Nangong aristocratic family as well since the latter was Nangong Ling's granduncle master. However, he made a huge mistake. Su Zimo's surname was Su and not Nangong. Even if you're not from the Nangong aristocratic family, you must be famous. I must have been blind to want to cause trouble for you. Please forgive me, Senior. Nangong Yu smiled embarrassedly and lowered his head obediently. He could no longer care about his dignity and bowed down completely. That's right, that's right. The 3 nascent soul old men chimed in hurriedly. Perhaps you've heard of my Dao title as well. Su Zimo said indifferently, I'm Desolate Marshal. Desolate Marshal. Those 2 words seemed to possess a demonic power. The expressions of Nangong Yu and the 3 nascent souls froze on their faces as endless fear and shock filled their eyes. Their bodies trembled slightly. There were truly not many people in the cultivation world who could scare cultivators with just a Dao title. Su Zimo was definitely one of them. Even the titular disciples of the super sects would shudder at the mention of Desolate Marshal, let alone Nangong Yu who was only at Golden Core Realm and the 3 nascent souls. Up till this point of his cultivation, Desolate Marshal had been treading on the corpses of various paragons and monster incarnates. Baiming Shui opened her mouth slightly with deep shock in her beautiful eyes. Desolate Marshal. Her master was the renowned Dao Lord Desolate Marshal of the cultivation world. It was no wonder why her master's understanding of the martial Dao was so thorough. It was no wonder why her master refused to reveal his identity and kept it a secret. It was no wonder why her master was worried that she would be implicated if he accepted her as a disciple. There was only a single reason. Her master was Desolate Marshal. The moment Baiming Shui heard that, apart from shock, there was no worries or fear in her heart. Instead, she was filled with joy and pride. Desolate Marshal wishes to establish a Dao and impart martial arts to all living beings. To begin with, she had immense respect for Desolate Marshal. No matter the rumors outside, Baiming Shui believed that Dao Lord Desolate Marshal had a magnanimity that no one else could match. His magnanimity surpassed that of any orthodox cultivator. Baiming Shui would be extremely satisfied even if she could meet Desolate Marshal once, let alone take him as her master. After saying that, Su Zimo did not say anything more. Suddenly the entire courtyard fell into a dead silence. Nangong Ling lowered his head slightly with a cold glint in his eyes. He turned around and looked at Nangong Yu's group of 4 before saying slowly, "The 4 of you, you won't have to leave this courtyard today." Su Zimo did not say much. However, the moment he revealed his Dao title, Nangong Yu and the other 3 had to die. Right now, Su Zimo had already offended some super sects of the Immortal, Buddhist and Fiend sections. If they knew that Su Zimo was not dead, those super sects would definitely make a move. Furthermore, Su Zimo's combat strength was greatly reduced with his essence spirit injured. If Nangong Yu's group of 4 were to leave, it would be equivalent to planting Su Zimo in a dangerous place. Thought. Nangong Yu and the other 3 knelt down one after another with pale faces. "We're from the Nangong family after all and have the same blood flowing through our veins. Uncle Ling, please spare us. Uncle Ling, please show mercy. We won't say anything more after we leave." Nangong Yu bawled and was scared out of his wits. Nangong Ling's expression was calm and unmoved. The Nangong aristocratic family had 1,000 collateral lineages. As a direct descendant, he had no feelings towards these collateral descendants. In his heart, Su Zimo was much more important. Swoosh! A tricolored flame suddenly appeared in Nangong Ling's palm. The Samadhi Dao Fire. Nangong Ling had already obtained the legacy of Extreme Fire's lineage. Although his Samadhi Dao Fire was much weaker than Su Zimo's, it was more than enough to deal with Nangong Yu and the 3 nascent souls. The flames engulfed Nangong Yu's group of 4 instantly. Ah! Nangong Yu's group of 4 shrieked. Flames surged into the skies. In the blink of an eye, Nangong Yu turned into ashes. He was only a golden core and could not withstand the burning of the Samadhi Dao Fire. As for the 3 nascent souls, they only managed to hold on for a moment longer before they died completely. Their flesh and bones were burned to ashes by the Samadhi Dao Fire. As a direct descendant of the Nangong aristocratic family, Nangong Ling had joined 100 Refinement sect and experienced many storms. He had even followed Su Zimo and witnessed shocking battles such as the Thousand Crane Tea Party. He was not a benevolent person to be able to cultivate to this point. Baiming Shui stood behind Su Zimo and looked at the dust that was falling slowly in midair with a complicated expression as she lamented internally. Right from the beginning, Su Zimo had not stood up nor attacked. With just a few words, Nangong Yu's group of 4 were buried here. With a flip of his hand, he could create clouds and rain. Those were her master's methods. Chapter 1352 Safe and Sound. Chapter 1352, Safe and Sound. Baiming Town in front of the clan's grand hall. Baiming Ao looked at the blazing flames in the courtyard far away and called out with a quivering voice, "Sister!" He could no longer hold back his tears and they flowed instantly. When he saw that, Baiming Ao's first reaction was that his sister had already died in the sea of flames. The faint shrieks that came from the courtyard must be from that green-robed man with the surname Su. The Baiming clan leader shook his head as well and sighed deeply. The remaining Baiming clansmen looked fearful as well. Although they were far away, the energy fluctuation released by the Dao Fire still made everyone's hearts palpitate. That was the power of a void reversion. "Child, my condolences." The Baiming clan leader looked at Baiming Ao and reminded, "Since things have come to this, you must not be reckless. Otherwise you will definitely die as well." He said earnestly, "There's only hope if you're alive." Baiming Ao gradually stopped crying. It was as though he had grown a lot in an instant. "That's right, there's only hope if I'm alive." He clenched his fists with a cold expression. In the courtyard, Nangong Yu's group of 4 turned into ashes and only left 4 storage bags. Nangong Ling picked up the 4 storage bags and wiped away the spirit consciousness on them before handing them to Su Zimo without even taking a single look. "You can have them." Su Zimo glanced sideways and gestured for Baiming Shui to step forward. Baiming Shui had already gradually adapted to her identity. When she heard Su Zimo's words, she received the 4 storage bags and placed them into her own storage bag before thanking him. "Will you get into trouble for killing the 4 of them?" Su Zimo looked at Nangong Ling and asked. "Granduncle Master, don't worry. Nangong Yu is from a collateral lineage and merely has the surname of Nangong. No one will care about them." Nangong Ling said, "Furthermore, as a direct descendant of the Nangong aristocratic family, I have some status among the younger generation of the family." "Yes, that's good." Su Zimo nodded. Nangong Ling continued, Don't worry, Granduncle Master. I'll definitely settle this matter properly and no one from the Nangong family will cause trouble for you. Su Zimo asked, why are you back this time round? Nangong Ling replied, my family summoned me back to take part in the aristocratic family competition with my clansmen. I invited Han Yin and Xian Xian over to take a breather and explore. What sort of people are those taking part in the family competition? Su Zimo asked deeply, will the family masters of your 3 aristocratic families appear? No. Nangong Ling shook his head. The aristocratic family competition is only a fight between the younger generation of Foundation establishment cultivators and golden cores. As for the family masters of the 3 aristocratic families, they are all conjoint body mighty figures. Naturally, they won't show themselves. Typically, the 3 aristocratic families send out their outstanding paragons to take part with their clansmen. This time round, I'm the commander of the Nangong aristocratic family. Su Zimo nodded slightly and asked again, the commanders of the Dongfang and Shimin aristocratic families are also void reversions. More or less. Nangong Ling said, this is a fight between the younger generation after all. Even seniors with high cultivation realms won't show themselves. The presence of a void reversion is enough to control the situation. After a brief pause he continued, however, the aristocratic family competition this time round is at the Shimin Villa. Since it's an important place for the Shimin aristocratic family, there will definitely be some Dharma characteristic Dao Lords. However, I'm not sure whether there will be any conjoint body mighty figures. Su Zimo nodded. If it was just Dharma characteristic Dao Lords, they posed no threat to him. Even if his essence spirit was locked and he could not use Dharmic powers or Dharmic arts, it would be difficult for other Dharma characteristic Dao Lords to injure him. It would be much more troublesome if there were conjoint body mighty figures. He could not injure a conjoint body mighty figure with his green lotus true body alone. Of course, Su Zimo had no intention of offending the 3 aristocratic families unless he had no other choice. Nangong Ling could vaguely tell what he was implying and probed, Granduncle Master, are you intending to attack the 3 aristocratic families? If Su Zimo had such plans he would be in an awkward situation. On the one hand he was a direct descendant of the Nangong aristocratic family. On the other hand he was also a disciple of Extreme Fire's lineage. Su Zimo could tell Nangong Ling's worries and shook his head. You don't have to worry. I don't want to bother with the feud between the 3 aristocratic families and the Baiming clan. However, he changed the topic and said slowly, Baiming Shui is my disciple. Anyone who dares to bully her will be going against Desolate Marshal. Nangong Ling's heart skipped a beat as he nodded. Granduncle Master, I understand. Yes, there's nothing much. You guys can head back first. Su Zimo waved his hand. Granduncle Master, we've just arrived and have yet to speak much to you, but you're already chasing us away. Ru Xian pouted her lips and grumbled. Let's go. The aristocratic family competition is in a few days. Granduncle Master will definitely be there as well. Lu Hanyin pulled Ru Xian and smiled gently. Nangong Ling and the other 2 bowed to Su Zimo before turning to leave. In front of the clan's grand hall, Baiming Ao could no longer hold it in when he saw Nangong Ling and the other 2 speeding away on their auspicious clouds. He dashed home with a sorrowful expression. The Baiming clan leader followed closely behind, worried that something might happen to Baiming Ao. The remaining Baiming clansmen closed in as well. Bang! Baiming Ao pushed the door open and barged in. The moment he entered the courtyard, he was stunned and dumbfounded. Initially he thought that his sister was already dead and Su was burned to ashes. However, he had not expected the 2 of them to appear alive before him. Su leaned on his chair with half-opened eyes and a relaxed expression. Baiming Shui stood behind him with a hint of joy on her face. This? Baiming Ao was a little stunned and could not snap out of his stupor. Some Baiming clansmen came over and looked inside as well, shocked. Baiming Shui was not dead. What the hell? If that was the case, who was the one screaming from the burn earlier on? The Baiming clan leader stood at the entrance with a stunned expression. Earlier on, Nangong Yu and the others came with a murderous aura and a void reversion was even invited. Yet Baiming Shui was fine. This didn't make sense. The Baiming clan leader frowned slightly, feeling that something was amiss. Nangong Yu's group seemed to have vanished into thin air. The Baiming clan leader's gaze landed on some ashes in the courtyard and his pupils constricted as he thought of a possibility. However, that possibility was way too ridiculous. Would the Nangong aristocratic family kill one another? Sister, are you all right? Baiming Ao rushed to Baiming Shui and sized her up with a delighted expression. In fact, he could not help but reach out and pinch himself. Ouch. He grinned and laughed. It's not a dream, it's not a dream. Haha, my sister is fine. Baiming Shui looked at some Baiming clansmen at the entrance and said loudly, Sorry for worrying you clansmen, I'm fine. Thereafter she whispered, Little brother, let them disperse and go close the doors. I have something to tell you. All right. Baiming Ao was delighted when he saw that Baiming Shui was fine. Without thinking much, he rushed to the door and waved his hand. Everyone disperse. My sister is fine. Chapter 1353 Gift. Chapter 1353, Gift. Sister, what happened? Baiming Ao closed the door and could not help but ask, Where's Nangong Yu and the others? They're gone. Baiming Shui replied ambiguously. If she were to tell the truth, it would be difficult to hide Su Zimo's identity. She was smart and was extremely cautious. She knew that Su Zimo's identity was sensitive and could not reveal it casually, even if this was her younger brother. Gone? Baiming Ao was puzzled. Baiming Shui changed the topic and asked, Little brother, the aristocratic family competition is about to begin. What's your weapon? Baiming Ao was delighted when he heard that and took out a flying sword from his storage bag. It was etched with 3 spirit patterns. It was a superior grade spirit weapon. Sister, look. He said smugly, This was given to me by the old clan leader. There aren't many superior grade spirit weapons in the entire Baiming town. The foundation of the Baiming clan had long been snatched away by the 3 aristocratic families. Even the many cultivation techniques and secret manuals of the Baiming clan were snatched away by the 3 aristocratic families and their legacy was lost, let alone spirit weapons and dermic weapons. A superior grade spirit weapon, that's not bad. Baiming Shui nodded. However, you will still be disadvantaged if you face golden cores of the 3 aristocratic families in the aristocratic family competition. Golden cores of the 3 aristocratic families would at least possess a supreme-grade spirit weapon if they could take part in the aristocratic family competition. It was normal for some peerless geniuses or monster incarnates that were groomed by their families to possess perfect or connate spirit weapons. For example, Dongfangji, who destroyed Baiming Shui's golden core, possessed 2 connate spirit weapons. One of the connate spirit weapons even belonged to the Baiming aristocratic family. It's fine. Baiming Ao gripped his fist gently. I have a golden core phenomenon. Even if I lose in terms of weapons, I'll definitely be able to obtain a good ranking. This time round, the old clan leader told me that if I can get into the top 100, he will raise a request to the 3 aristocratic families to permit me to leave Baiming town and explore outside. Once I leave the territory of the 3 aristocratic families, the skies will be the limit. Who knows, I might encounter some opportunity and soar immensely. Sister, don't worry. I'll definitely take you with me when that time comes. Baiming Shui felt her heart warm up and nodded. Thank you for your concern, little brother. She looked at Su Zimo and hesitated slightly. However, she still took out a flying sword and a silver inner armor from her storage bag and handed them over. Baiming Shui said, Little brother, take these 2 spirit weapons. They will increase your chances at the aristocratic family competition. Baiming Ao did not think too much about it and took them over, asking casually, Sister, where did you get your hands on these spirit weapons? After sweeping his gaze, Baiming Ao's expression changed slightly. He could clearly see that there were 5 spirit patterns etched on the flying sword. Could it be? He could not believe it and channeled spirit energy into it. Whoosh! The sword buzzed and trembled, shining brightly in a bedazzling manner. A perfect grade spirit weapon. Baiming Ao exclaimed. His spirit energy entered the silver inner armor as well. Whoosh! A silver barrier burst forth from the inner armor and shone with 5 spirit lights. It was also a perfect grade spirit weapon. This shocked Baiming Ao. Sister Tethys. He could not even speak coherently anymore. After all, he had not even touched a supreme grade spirit weapon up till this point of his cultivation. He was overjoyed when the Baiming clan leader gave him a superior grade spirit weapon. One could imagine the impact of seeing 2 perfect grade spirit weapons right now. Baiming Shui was worried that Su Zimo would not agree to it. Therefore she was a little hesitant. However, she still loved her younger brother in her heart. Worried that Biming Ao might encounter danger at the aristocratic family competition, she took out 2 of the 3 perfect dermic weapons given to her by Nangong Ling and the other 2. However, right from the beginning, Su Zimo did not express anything and sat quietly at the side with closed eyes, seemingly unconcerned. Little brother, don't ask me about these 2 spirit weapons. I can't tell you. Biming Shui could see Biming Ao's confusion and shook her head. Although Biming Ao was curious, he controlled himself. The only thing he knew was that his sister would not harm him. Putting away the 2 perfect spirit weapons, Biming Ao looked at Su Zimo instinctively and could not help but extend his leg to kick the seat beneath Su Zimo. Hey, why are you still here? How many years has it been? He snapped. Biming Shui's expression changed as she berated sternly, Little brother, don't be rude. Sister, I didn't say anything much. Biming Ao murmured softly but was interrupted by Biming Shui before he could finish. Little brother apologized to Mr. So. She had a stern expression as she said slowly with a firm tone that was unquestionable. Biming Ao had never seen his sister so stern. Although he was indignant, he was a little afraid as well and cupped his fists at Su Zimo reluctantly. Mr. Su, I'm sorry. Su Zimo had a calm expression and did not open his eyes the entire time, seemingly asleep. What was his identity? He would not hold it against Biming Ao for such things. Biming Ao pouted his lips and looked at Su Zimo with even more disdain. However, due to Biming Shui, he retracted some sarcastic remarks he was about to make. Biming Shui waved her hand. All right, continue cultivating in the ancestral hall. Don't expose your perfect grade spirit weapons for now. Don't worry, sister. Biming Ao nodded and turned to leave without lingering. Master, will you blame me for giving away the 2 spirit weapons to my little brother? Biming Shui pondered for a long time and whispered uneasily. Su Zimo opened his eyes and smiled, shaking his head. It's nothing much. It's just 2 perfect grade spirit weapons. They're not incredible treasures either. His essence spirit was locked and he could not open his storage bag. Otherwise, any treasure he took out would far surpass a perfect grade spirit weapon. Earlier on, Su Zimo was also considering what gift he should give Biming Shui. Right now, he was not at the same level as Daiyu where he could give out universal treasures as gifts or alter one's fate. However, Biming Shui was his eldest disciple after all and he could not give her something too cheap. After a moment of silence, Su Zimo removed a string of Buddha beads on his left wrist and handed them to Biming Shui, saying indifferently, I've worn these Buddha beads for many years. Today I'll give them to you. Thank you, master. Biming Shui received the Buddha beads and examined them carefully but could not make out anything. There were no spirit patterns on the Buddha beads and there were no spirit chi fluctuations. They looked extremely old. Biming Shui did not think too much about it and wore the Buddha beads on her wrist casually. At that moment, she did not realize at all that the string of Buddha beads was the foundational treasure of a super sect in the cultivation world, the Mingwang prayer beads. Even conjoined body mighty figures would be tempted to fight to the death for those Buddha beads, let alone a golden core like her. Chapter 1354, Competition Begins. Chapter 1354, Competition Begins. As an important place of the Shiman aristocratic family, the Shiman villa was usually heavily guarded and outsiders were forbidden from entering. In the past 2 days, the Shiman villa suddenly became lively. That was because the competition between the 3 aristocratic families was about to begin. A day earlier, the paragons of the 3 aristocratic families arrived at the Shiman villa under the lead of their respective commanders to prepare for the competition. Naturally, the Shiman villa arranged accommodations for the cultivators of the Dongfang and Nangong aristocratic families as well as many spirit fruits and wine for them to consume. In a corner of the Shiman villa, everyone from the Biming clan was gathered. There were dozens of them. Su Zimo, Biming Shui and Biming Ao were among them. Sigh, our Biming clan has already fallen to such a state where we don't even have a place to settle down. Seems like we have to deal with this open-air place for the night. The 3 aristocratic families don't even care about us. Why would they arrange a place for us? Some Biming clansmen grumbled softly and sighed. The Biming clan leader frowned slightly and hollered softly, That's enough, we're here to take part in the aristocratic family competition. If you guys can obtain a good ranking, it'll be considered as giving the Biming clan face. Right then, a group of cultivators in brocade robes walked over from not far away, looking proud and arrogant. It's Dongfang Xian. Bai Ming-ao could not help but grit his teeth when he saw the leader. The person beside Dongfang Xian is the monster incarnate of the Shiman aristocratic family, Shiman Jingrui. I heard that he's already engaged to Dongfang Ji and will become her Dao companion soon. It was common to see marriage between the three aristocratic families. Fu. Before Dongfang Xian arrived, laughter sounded. Aren't those the legendary clansmen of the ancient Baiming aristocratic family? How impolite of us. Dongfang Xian smiled gently with a mocking tone. The Baiming clansmen lowered their heads and their faces reddened, but they did not dare to say anything. Dongfang Xian said pretentiously, "Brother Jingrui, your Shiman aristocratic family is truly in the wrong this time round. Why are you guys so slow to even give them a place despite the fact that the Baiming clan is an ancient aristocratic family?" Baiming aristocratic family? Jingrui was puzzled. Why haven't I heard of them before? There's only so few people in an ancient aristocratic family? Why aren't they as prosperous as even a collateral lineage of my Shiman aristocratic family? Sigh, perhaps they've already declined. Dongfang Xian sighed. However, even so, they were still an ancient aristocratic family. If they can be considered as an ancient aristocratic family just like that, wouldn't aristocratic families be everywhere? Shiman Jingrui shook his head. That won't do. Ha 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 ha. The aristocratic family cultivators behind the two of them roared in laughter brazenly. Joking one after another, the two of them did not take the Baiming clansmen seriously at all. Dongfang Xian, Shiman Jingrui, don't be smug. Bai Ming-ao's expression was cold as he suddenly said, "If you encounter me, Bai Ming-ao, at the aristocratic family competition, you'll definitely be disgraced." Hee. Shiman Jingrui sneered and could not be bothered with Bai Ming-ao. As a monster incarnate of the Golden Core realm, he could be considered as the #1 perfected being of the Shiman aristocratic family and could even match the paragons of the super sects. How could he take an early-stage Golden Core like Bai Ming-ao seriously? However, Dongfang Xian's expression darkened as killing intent flashed through his eyes. "Little beast, watch your words. Otherwise I'll kill you right now." Private duels are forbidden within the villa before the competition even begins. Bai Ming-ao said coldly. Fu. Dongfang Xian sneered, "That's between our three aristocratic families. However, cultivators of the Baiming clan are ants in our eyes. We can crush them easily." His words were not a threat. If he killed cultivators of the Baiming clan in the villa, nobody would punish him. There was no such thing as absolute fairness in the cultivation world. The prerequisite of fairness was that both parties had the same strength and status. Bai Ming-ao, stop it. The Baiming clan leader shouted hurriedly and bowed to Dongfang Xian and Shiman Jingrui, smiling apologetically. "Both of you are esteemed figures while Bai Ming-ao is still young and insensible. Please don't stoop to his level." "Who told you to come out?" Dongfang Xian raised his brow and scolded coldly, "Old thing scram. Get that lowlife Bai Ming-ao to apologize to me personally." As a nascent soul, the Baiming clan leader's cultivation realm was above Dongfang Xian. However, he could only endure being scolded by Dongfang Xian and retreat with a sigh. It was as though he had aged considerably in an instant. Right from the beginning, Bai Ming-shui did not say anything. She had a cold expression and clenched her fists, still enduring. There was no way Su Zimo would attack. He would ignore something as such completely and allow Bai Ming-shui to handle it on her own. The only exception was if someone crossed his bottom line. Bai Ming-ao stood in the crowd motionlessly with fire flaring out of his eyes. "What? You're unwilling?" Dongfang Xian swept his gaze and grinned. "If you don't apologize to me, all of your Baiming clansmen will suffer." "Jigo, apologize. It's nothing much." "That's right. After all, you were the one who provoked him. It has nothing to do with us." Some of the Baiming clansmen could not withstand the pressure and whispered. Bai Ming-ao grit his teeth so hard that they cracked and his face turned green. Right then, a group of cultivators walked over from afar. They wore the robes of the Nangong aristocratic family and were rather striking. Their leader was the Golden Core paragon of the Nangong aristocratic family, Nangong Shi. Among the Golden Cores of this generation, the Nangong aristocratic family's Nangong Shi, the Dongfang aristocratic family's Dongfang Ji and the Shiman aristocratic family's Shiman Jingrui were lauded as the three great paragons. Among them, Nangong Shi was the most famous. "What are you guys doing here?" Nangong, she walked forward and smiled at everyone, asking, "You're just in time, brother Nangong?" Dongfang Xian said, "These little beasts of the Baiming clan are foolish and have offended me. I'm about to teach them a lesson." Nangong, she smiled gently. "Unfortunately, I have something on as well. I'd like to invite 3 cultivators of the Baiming clan over to sit with me." With that said, he cupped his fists towards Baiming Shui and Baiming Ao. "Fellow Taoists, follow me." Thereafter, Nangong Shi's gaze landed on Su Zimo. "Also this mister, please follow me as well." "Nangong Shi, what's the meaning of this?" Dongfang Xian's expression turned cold as he asked with a frown. Nangong Shi replied indifferently, "Nothing much. I'm merely inviting 3 cultivators of the Baiming clan. Are you going to stop me?" "Brother Nangong, that's where you're wrong." Shimin Jingrui said, "It's fine if you want to invite the 3 of them, but Baiming Ao has to apologize to Dongfang Xian first before leaving." "Oh." Nangong Shi replied expressionlessly, "Now, I truly don't agree with that." With that said, he nodded to Baiming Shui and her brother before turning to leave with them. Su Zimo smiled calmly and followed behind. Dongfang Xian and Shimin Jingrui had grim expressions, but they were wary and did not stop him. The Baiming clansmen revealed looks of envy. Chapter 1355, 3 Great Commanders. Chapter 1355, 3 Great Commanders. Naturally, Baiming Ao was puzzled. Only Su Zimo and Baiming Shui knew the reason why. "Thank you, fellow Taoist Nangong." Baiming Ao cupped his fists towards Nangong Shi and expressed his thanks. However, his eyes were still wary. One who was unaccountably solicitous was hiding evil intentions. His first reaction was that the Nangong aristocratic family wanted to rope them in and obtain that non-existent secret. Nangong Shi smiled and was not bothered. Instead, his gaze lingered on Baiming Shui and Su Zimo. All he received was an order to bring the 3 of them over. Furthermore, the commander of the Nangong aristocratic family, Nangong Ling, had given a clear order to not delay the 3 of them. However, Nangong Shi did not see anything special about the 3 of them. Baiming Ao was not old and was a little rash. Baiming Shui was outstanding and possessed an extraordinary aura. However, her golden core was shattered by Dongfang Ji and she was now a cripple. 100 years of lifespan was fleeting. As for the green-robed man, he couldn't read this person at all. Nangong Shi shook his head. There were no traces of cultivation on the person, making him look like a mortal scholar. However, he did not seem uneasy in the territory of cultivators at the Shimin villa. Instead, he was even more composed than the cultivators of the 3 aristocratic families, as though he was right at home. Nangong Shi brought the 3 of them to a residence and smiled. "The 3 of you can rest here tonight. The competition will officially begin tomorrow. If there's anything, you just have to summon the servants of the Nangong family." With that said, he turned to leave. "That's all." Baiming Ao was puzzled. He was still pondering over the motive of Nangong Shi for saving them and how he should deal with it. In the end, the latter merely turned and left. "Come in and rest. You have to rest well for tomorrow's competition." Baiming Shui beckoned to Baiming Ao. This was a side courtyard of the Shimin villa. It was exquisite with fake mountains and flowing water, a spirit plantation with lush greenery and some servants of the Nangong family within. Even direct descendants of the Nangong aristocratic family lived in a similar environment. What's up with the Nangong family? Baiming Ao was still puzzled. However, when he thought about the competition tomorrow, he suppressed his curiosity temporarily and began to rest, preparing for the upcoming battle. The next morning, the villa that had been silent for the entire night gradually became livelier. The Baiming clansmen spent the night in the open ground of the villa with a chilling wind. Although it was nothing much for cultivators, they were all dispirited. At that moment, Baiming Shui and Baiming Ao walked over. Having rested for the night, Baiming Ao looked energetic and was filled with vigor. "Let's go." The Baiming clan leader greeted and headed towards his clansmen, towards the center of the villa. The aristocratic family competition was set up in the center of the villa and was surrounded by a spectator area. The commanders of the 3 aristocratic families had seats and the rest of the clansmen stood to watch. The spectator area was in a circle and the center was where the fight was. The battlefield split into 10 gigantic raised platforms. At that moment, the spectator area was almost filled with people and voices. Cultivators of the 3 aristocratic families were already present. At a glance, they were dense and looked extremely spectacular. My. The Biming aristocratic family sent people too? Fufu, in my opinion, they're here to embarrass themselves. Many cultivators burst into laughter with mocking expressions when they caught sight of the Biming clansmen. There's no space here. Get lost. A cultivator of the Shiman aristocratic family hollered. Actually, there was an empty spot beside him that could accommodate more than 10 people. The Biming clan leader sighed internally and did not argue. He led his clansmen to the other side. At his age, he no longer had the fervor to fight. He had expected such humiliation when they came to take part in the aristocratic family competition. Everyone from the Biming clan, come over. Nangong, she beckoned to everyone from the Biming clan. Su Zimo swept his gaze. On the side of the Nangong aristocratic family, Nangong Ling, Lu Hanyin and Ru Xian sat high and above in the spectator area with many spirit fruits and immortal peaches around them. Nangong Ling stood up hurriedly and wanted to walk towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo shook his head gently. It was only then that Nangong Ling stopped. Isn't that Nangong Ling? A chuckle sounded from afar as a cultivator of the Shiman aristocratic family arrived slowly in a gigantic carriage that hovered in midair. Many young and beautiful girls surrounded the carriage. The cultivator of the Shiman aristocratic family had a relaxed expression as he drank his wine and said coolly, "You've been out adventuring for many years. How have you been?" Shiman Zhe. Nangong Ling raised his brow. Shiman Zhe was the commander of the Shiman aristocratic family this time round and hosted the aristocratic family competition. Nangong Ling, you probably can't even recognize us anymore now that you're in 100 refinement sect of the 4 unorthodox groups, huh? A void reversion of the Dongfang aristocratic family flew over with an unfriendly expression. Dongfang. The commander of the Dongfang aristocratic family this time round. The three of them were considered as cultivators of the same generation and had known one another since they were young. However, Nangong Ling headed to the Middle Continent to train and cultivate, joining 100 refinement sect thereafter. As for Shiman Zhe and Dongfang Yi, the two of them remained cultivating in the aristocratic families. As such, their paths varied. However, they were all elites of the same generation after all. Now that they were all at the void reversion realm, they were famous outside. Although what happened the previous night was only a small conflict between the juniors, Dongfang Yi and Shiman Zhe had already received the news. Therefore, their tones were sarcastic the moment they met Nangong Ling today. Nangong Ling smiled faintly and ignored the two of them. Standing in the crowd, Su Zimo could not use his spirit consciousness and merely surveyed his surroundings with his vision and hearing. As Nangong Ling had said, there were no cultivators with high cultivation realms in this aristocratic family competition. The commanders of the three aristocratic families, Shiman Zhe, Dongfang Yi and Nangong Ling, were all at the void reversion realm. Apart from them, there were also some void reversions. However, Su Zimo could sense that there were definitely Dharma-characteristic Tao Lords in this villa. As for conjoined body mighty figures, he could not detect them yet. Actually, Su Zimo was not interested in the aristocratic family competition at all. He was here because he was worried about Biming Shui. Because Biming Shui was his eldest disciple, he could not just leave her be. At the very least, he would only leave after this matter was over. The sect competition had already begun. The Foundation establishment cultivators of the various aristocratic families ascended the stone platform one after another to fight in pairs. A few Foundation establishment cultivators from the Biming aristocratic family came forward as well. But soon, the Biming aristocratic family clansmen were defeated by cultivators of the three aristocratic families. They only cleared 2 rounds at most before being swept away. The Biming aristocratic family did not have any cultivation technique manuals, spirit weapons or elixirs. As for the cultivators of the three aristocratic families, they had countless resources and guidance from their experts. The difference in strength between them was immense. Each time the Biming aristocratic family was defeated, a series of mocking laughs would echo from the crowd. "Little brother, don't be nervous. Given your strength, you can definitely make it to the top 100. Biming Shui consoled him softly. "All right." Biming Ao nodded. The Foundation establishment cultivator competition ended before noon. Immediately after was the fight between the golden cores. Chapter 1356, Attack. Chapter 1356, Attack. The Biming clan did not have many golden cores taking part in the fight. Including Baiming Ao, there were only 3 of them. A few years ago, Baiming Shue's golden core was crippled and she lost her rights. All these years, she cultivated the martial Tao wholeheartedly and did not take the initiative to mention this matter. Baiming Shue's gaze passed through the crowd and landed on a cold and arrogant woman from the Dongfang aristocratic family. Dongfang Ji. A few years ago, Dongfang Ji was the one who snatched her treasure and even destroyed her golden core. She had never forgotten about that matter. Although she did not take part in the aristocratic family competition today, she would definitely settle this matter with Dongfang Ji. As though she sensed something, Dongfang Ji glanced sideways and exchanged glances with Baiming Shue. Her lips curled with disdain. In her eyes, Baiming Shue was a cripple and was no longer worthy of her attention. The golden core competition began. The other 2 Baiming clansmen were quickly defeated by their opponents. As for Baiming Ao, he swept through and defeated 3 opponents before entering the 4th round. Initially, nobody noticed Baiming Ao. However, after clearing the 7th round in front of Baiming Shue, he finally attracted the attention of the 3 aristocratic families when there were less than 100 remaining opponents. This meant that Baiming Ao was now in the top 100 of this golden core competition. To think that such a character would appear in the Baiming clan. How rare. The commander of the Shimin aristocratic family, Shimin Zhe, narrowed his eyes with a cold glint. It's nothing much. Dongfang Yi replied indifferently, he will definitely go against Dongfang Xian. At that time, Dongfang Xian can suppress him with ease and cripple him. Time quickly passed. The Baiming clansmen became increasingly nervous as they watched Baiming Ao fight on the stone platform fixedly. Right now, he had less than 20 opponents remaining. Baiming Ao is victorious. An aristocratic family cultivator declared loudly. On the stone platform, Baiming Ao panted slightly. Although he was drenched in sweat from the consecutive fights, he still looked extremely excited. Earlier on, at the most critical moment, he had to use the perfect grade flying sword Baiming Shue gave him to defeat his opponent. Right now he was ranked 20th. If he were to stop while he was ahead and admit defeat, he could still obtain immense rewards and might even be able to raise a request to the 3 aristocratic families for an expedition outside. However, Baiming Ao did not want to withdraw just like that. That was because Dongfang Xian would be his next opponent. He wanted to defeat Dongfang Xian openly. Little Cup, seems like I've been too lax in looting you guys over the years. To think that you would have a perfect spirit weapon with you. Dongfang Xian leaped onto the stone platform and said darkly, if you hand over that perfect spirit weapon now, I might spare your life. Otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. Dongfang Xian cut the crap. Accept the challenge. Baiming Ao hollered and waved his sleeves, summoning a perfect grade flying sword. He took the initiative and his flying sword transformed into a streak of light, piercing towards Dongfang Xian. Humph. Dongfang Xian's expression turned cold as he swiped his storage bag and summoned a perfect grade flying sword as well, slashing forward. Clang. Sparks flew as the 2 perfect grade flying swords collided. Baiming Ao's expression changed slightly. He had expended a lot of stamina in the consecutive battles. Furthermore, he was only at early stage golden core while Dongfang Xian was at late stage. The difference between them was 2 minor realms. Baiming Ao clearly felt a little powerless in this head-on clash. Clang, clang, clang. Both of their flying swords fought with speed and it was clear that Dongfang Xian was stronger. His sword techniques were complex, unrestrained and beguiling. However, Baiming Ao did not cultivate any brilliant sword-wielding techniques. Back and forth he merely utilized some basic sword arts. Before long, Baiming Ao was completely suppressed by Dongfang Xian. Golden Core Phenomenon. Finally, Baiming Ao could not hold on any longer and released his power of phenomenon. A boundless ocean appeared behind him, emitting a cold aura as the surrounding temperature dipped. It's Baiming Ocean. After so many years, someone has finally cultivated the legacy phenomenon of the Baiming aristocratic family. Cries of surprises came from the crowd. Spectator area. Shimin-Zhe and Dongfang Yi had indifferent expressions and were nonchalant. As void reversions, they were sharp and could naturally tell that Baiming Ao was at the end of his rope. Even if he summoned Baiming Ocean, he would not be able to hold out for long. Eastern Purple Qi. Dongfang Xian hollered and released his golden core phenomenon as well. A purple qi appeared behind him and shone brightly, charging towards Baiming Ocean with a powerful phenomenon. Boom. The purple chi surged into Biming Ocean and created raging tides instantly. The seawater splashed. Biming Ao's face was pale as his phenomenon swayed. It was on the brink of collapse. It was not because his golden core phenomenon was not strong enough, but because his spirit energy was thoroughly exhausted and he could not withstand that head-on collision. Admit defeat. The Biming clan leader shouted hurriedly, "The Biming clan has admitted defeat." Sparring was still the main focus for the fights of the aristocratic family competition, and there would rarely be fights to the death. As long as one party would admit defeat, the other party wouldn't be ruthless. However, Dongfang Xian was unmoved by the shout of the Biming clan leader. Instead, his eyes were filled with killing intent as he said coldly, "It's too late to admit defeat now. This lad is arrogant and conceited. I'll cripple him today as a warning to others." Boom. Dongfang Xian channeled his golden core to its limits and purple chi surged, bursting through Biming Ocean and landing on Biming Ao's chest. Whoosh. In a flash, a silver light shone from Biming Ao's chest and blocked most of the power of the golden core phenomenon. Even so, Biming Ao was sent flying far away and spat out a mouthful of blood with a dispirited expression. If not for the silver inner armor Biming Shui gave him, he would have been a dead man by now. Another perfect grade spirit weapon. The Biming clan sure has a strong foundation. To think that two perfect spirit weapons would appear in Biming Ao's possession. He didn't die. Dongfang Xian's expression turned cold as he leaped up. Purple chi shrouded his body as he chased after Biming Ao, who was outside the stone platform. Biming Ao has already admitted defeat and fell from the stone platform. You can't kill him anymore. The Biming clan leader stood out and shouted. "Old thing, you had better not interfere." A nascent soul of the Dongfang aristocratic family said slowly, "The rules of the aristocratic family competition are only targeted at our three aristocratic families. Who do you think the Biming clan is?" Dongfang Xian caught up to Biming Ao before the latter even landed on the ground. "Little cub, let's see who can save you today." The power of phenomenon behind Dongfang Xian surged and smashed towards Biming Ao. All of a sudden, a figure appeared before Biming Ao like a phantom. It was Biming Shui. She extended her palm slowly and clenched it into a fist, punching towards Dongfang Xian as she said coldly, "Get lost." Chapter 1357, Enlightenment. Chapter 1357, Enlightenment. Biming Shui. That woman's golden core is crippled. Is she looking to die? Everyone from the Biming aristocratic family are indeed idiots. Against Dongfang Xian's golden core phenomenon, even low-level spirit weapons would be shattered, let alone a body of flesh and blood. Many cultivators burst into laughter when they saw that. Of course, there were still some people who did not laugh. Su Zimo's expression was indifferent as he watched everything quietly. At the spectator area, Nangong Ling, Lu Hanyan and Ru Xian did not laugh either. That was because they knew that Biming Shui was the disciple of Granduncle Master Desolate Marshal. The eldest disciple. To their understanding, Granduncle Master Desolate Marshal was someone extremely protective. Since she was his eldest disciple, Granduncle Master would definitely value and love her even more. In the cultivation world, cultivators had a long lifespan, and by the end of their cultivations, they would most likely not have any kin remaining. Therefore, many a times, the relationship between master and disciple was even more important than bloodline clansmen. Even with his essence spirit injured, Granduncle Master protected Biming Shui and arrived at the aristocratic family competition. It was clear how much he valued this eldest disciple. Who was Desolate Marshal? The #1 monster incarnate in history. There was no way his eldest disciple was ordinary. Biming Shui looked a little frail and there was no spirit energy fluctuation in her body. Against Dongfang Xian, who had a torrential aura and ferocious spirit energy, she was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Biming Shui's fist collided with Dongfang Xian's purple chi. Boom. The ferocious purple chi dissipated instantly. Dongfang Xian was stunned and shuddered as though he was struck by lightning. He flew back at an even faster speed and landed heavily on the stone platform. Poof. Dongfang Xian spat out a mouthful of blood with a pale expression. His tendons and bones felt like they were about to split as he laid on the ground and shrieked. More than half of his body was crippled and he could not even stand up, let alone fight. The seemingly tiny mantis managed to shatter the war chariot. It was just a single punch. The laughter in the spectator area had yet to stop. However, the battle was already over. The expressions of the cultivators gradually froze as they opened their mouths slowly with eyes widened in disbelief. Dongfang Xian was defeated? Furthermore, he was defeated by a single punch from the cripple, Baiming Shui? Even Dongfang Xian's golden core phenomenon was shattered by Baiming Shui's body? How was that possible? Even the Baiming clansmen were dumbfounded, let alone the cultivators of the three aristocratic families. Naturally, Su Zimo was not surprised by that. Furthermore, he could tell that Baiming Shui did not use her full strength. If she released her full strength, Dongfang Xian would be torn apart by her punch and die on the spot, let alone his golden core phenomenon. Piak. Dongfang Ji slapped the table and stood up, barking coldly with a cold expression, "Bitch!" Martial Dao. Shimanzai swept his gaze across Baiming Shui and frowned slightly as he murmured. The only way one would not possess spirit energy fluctuations was if they cultivated the martial Dao. However, how could the power of the martial Dao be so strong? Sister Yu. Baiming Ao was shocked. He was right behind Baiming Shui and had a deeper understanding of the collision earlier on. He seemed to be able to sense the raging Baiming ocean within her body. He had not expected that his crippled sister would be able to release such a terrifying power after a few years. Could this be the power of the martial Dao? Suddenly, Baiming Ao realized that he could no longer read his sister. Dongfang Ji said coldly, "Are you guys blind? This slut has already broken the rules of the competition by attacking without permission. Suppress her and kill her in public." Nangong Ling sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness expressionlessly. Nangong Shi understood and chuckled before standing out. "I don't think Baiming Shui is to blame for this. The one who broke the rules of the competition was not Baiming Shui, but your younger brother, Dongfang Xian." Firstly, Dongfang Xian was unwilling to stop even though Baiming Ao had already admitted defeat. Secondly, even after Baiming Ao was out of the stone platform, Dongfang Xian continued hunting him beyond its radius. Anyone can attack outside the radius of the stone platform. To be blunt, if I was the one who attacked earlier to suppress Dongfang Xian, it wouldn't have been considered as breaking the rules. Nangong Shi Yu. Dongfang Ji frowned with a frosty expression. Those two were the strongest monster incarnates among the three aristocratic families. Including Shimin Jingrui, the three of them should be the top three of this golden core competition. The three aristocratic families had always been on good terms. Dongfang Ji was even engaged to Shimin Jingrui through marriage. Nobody expected Nangong Shi and Dongfang Ji to fight because of Baiming Shui. Could it be that Nangong Shi had a crush on Dongfang Ji? Is he jealous because she is engaged to Shimin Jingrui? Impossible. I'm guessing that Nangong Shi might be involved with Baiming Shui. Although Baiming Shui has a low status, she's extremely beautiful. The two of them look like a golden couple. Even though they were cultivators, they could not help but gossip. Shimanzai and Dongfang Yi looked at Nangong Ling, who was not far away. Nangong Ling's expression was unchanged as he looked straight ahead. Both of them sneered internally. Naturally, the three commanders would not appear for such a small matter. Nangong Shi, what are you trying to do? Shimin Jingrui could not help but stand out with a terrible expression. Nothing much, I'm just stating the facts. Nangong Shi spread his hands with an innocent expression. I'll remember this matter first. Dongfang Ji nodded and looked deeply at Nangong Shi before turning to Baiming Shui. In a flash, she arrived on the stone platform. She did not conceal the killing intent in her heart as she said slowly, "Bitch, I destroyed your golden core 4 years ago. Now I'll give you a chance. I'll let you have a fair fight against me in this aristocratic family competition." Baiming Shui glared at Dongfang Ji fearlessly with a cold expression. She had waited for this day for a long time. She turned to look at Su Zimo. Su Zimo smiled faintly. "Go on. The martial Dao allows one to exact revenge and repay gratitude as they please. It wouldn't matter even if you pierced through the heavens today." Baiming Shui was filled with pride and no longer had any reservations. If anybody else made her such a promise, she would have been skeptical. However, if her master said something like that, she believed that he would defend her even if the sky collapsed. That was because her master was Desolate Marshal. He was Dao Lord Desolate Marshal, who was renowned throughout the world and established his Dao for the masses. Instantly, Baiming Shui was enlightened. In fact, even her cultivation that was stuck at the 8 transformations of the martial Dao had loosened slightly at this moment. She could sense the aura of the dragon elephant force. Bai Ming Shui turned around and walked towards the stone platform with a burning gaze. Her footsteps were firm, and at that moment her martial Tao reached its peak. It was unshakable. Under the envelopment of that will, Dong Fangji suddenly felt a sense of pressure. On the stone platform, Bai Ming Shui walked towards Dong Fangji step by step. With every step she took, her aura would increase by a fraction. However, the pressure on Dong Fangji would increase as well. Chapter 1358, A Punch and a Sword. Chapter 1358, A Punch and a Sword. What powerful blood qi. At the spectator area, Dong Fangyi narrowed his gaze. Shimanzai nodded as well. Bai Ming Shui's bloodline has probably already cultivated to the lead Mercury amalgam blood realm. Among the three aristocratic families, the Shiman aristocratic family had the strongest body tempering. However, even for Shiman Jingrui, who was at Golden Core realm, he only cultivated to the lead Mercury amalgam realm with the help of many resources. Dong Fangji's heart skipped a beat. As the most outstanding successor of the Dongfang aristocratic family at the Golden Core realm, she made the right judgment right away and retreated to keep her distance from Bai Ming Shui. She could not engage Bai Ming Shui in melee combat. The martial Tao was to constantly develop one's potential and temper their bodies. Those who cultivated the martial Tao were extremely strong in melee combat. Go! Dong Fangji slapped her storage bag and waved her sleeves, causing a silver spear to appear before her. The spear quivered and shone with 6 spirit patterns in a bright light. Khanate dermic weapon, heavenly essence spear. Cultivators of the Dongfang aristocratic family rarely use swords. Most of them use spears. While a spear was weaker than a flying sword in terms of agility, it was stronger than a flying sword in terms of strength. Under Dong Fangji's control, the heavenly essence spear transformed into a silver streak of light and arrived before Bai Ming Shui at an astonishing speed. In terms of speed and burst power, Khanate weapons were the limit. Without much movement, a cold shimmering sword had already appeared in her hands. The sword quivered and 5 spirit patterns lit up. A perfect spirit weapon. That sword was the perfect spirit weapon Lu Hanyan gave Bai Ming Shui. Bai Ming Shui has a perfect spirit weapon as well. The Bai Ming family sure has some good stuff. Many cultivators revealed looks of envy. Bai Ming Shui suddenly attacked and slashed with her sword. Clang. Sparks flew when the sword struck the heavenly essence spear. Normally, a Khanate spirit weapon would definitely gain the upper hand in a clash between perfect and Khanate spirit weapons. However, Bai Ming Shui was way too strong. The sword quivered and sent the heavenly essence spear flying when it slashed down. Boom. Bai Ming Shui strode forward and stomped heavily on the ground, arriving before Dong Fangji instantly like an arrow that was released from a bow. It was too fast. With the burst of Bai Ming Shui's body and bloodline, she covered a distance of more than 100 feet instantly. Bai Ming Shui's expression was cold as she raised her sword and stabbed. Before the sword even arrived, a chilling sharpness was already released. Dong Fangji actually felt a slight sting on her glabella. Trap. Dong Fangji's reaction was extremely fast when she saw that she could not retrieve the heavenly essence spear in time. She conjured a hand seal and released the legacy spirit art of her aristocratic family. Strange vines and branches grew from the stone platform beneath Bai Ming Shui and coiled around her body and limbs. The Dongfang aristocratic family specialized in wood spirit arts. As a golden core paragon of the Dongfang aristocratic family, Dong Fangji was even more well-versed in this Tao and conjured her spirit art in the blink of an eye. Those vines and branches were no ordinary plants. With the augmentation of Dong Fangji's spirit energy, they were not weaker than spirit weapons. Furthermore, there were spikes on the vines that could pierce a cultivator's flesh. After releasing the spirit art, Dong Fangji seized the opportunity to retreat and distance herself from Bai Ming Shui once more. Humph! Bai Ming Shui sneered. She cultivated the martial Tao and was already at the 8th transformation, Indestructible Diamond. Her body was already invulnerable to fire, water and weapons. Even true spirit weapons could not hurt her, let alone the vines conjured by spirit energy. Bai Ming Shui struggled. Crack, crack, crack. The moment the vines coiled around her, Bai Ming Shui broke free and gave chase once more. Clang, clang, clang. She slashed in succession. Dong Fangji blocked Bai Ming Shui's sword with her precise movement techniques and spear techniques. However, she was completely disadvantaged. Bai Ming-shui did not have many sword techniques, but with her martial Dao true body as a foundation, the speed and power of each sword strike were pushed to the limits. She was overwhelming everything with brute force. No matter how precise Dong Fangji's moves were, she could not defend against Bai Ming-shui's sword. Bai Ming-shui's strength is a little terrifying. To think that she would be able to reach such a realm in the martial Dao. I wonder how many transformations Bai Ming-shui has cultivated. The crowd whispered, nobody expected this outcome. She's merely relying on brute force. Shimin Jingrui sneered, everyone knows that one doesn't have any spirit energy if they cultivate the martial Dao, so they can't condense golden core phenomenons. That's the greatest advantage we cultivators have. Dong Fangyi sat high above with a calm expression and was not worried. No one was clearer than him about Dong Fangji's strength. This battle would end the moment Dong Fangji released her golden core phenomenon. Bai Ming-shui, you're very good to be able to force me to this extent. Dong Fangji's golden core circulated slowly and her spirit energy surged. A purple qi appeared behind her and shone brightly. Golden core phenomenon Eastern purple qi. Although it was the same phenomenon, the power of Dong Fangji's phenomenon was clearly many times stronger than Dong Fangxian's. It was not over yet. Suddenly, another powerful energy fluctuation appeared behind Dong Fangji. Another phenomenon rose. Many plants appeared behind Dong Fangji and transformed into ferocious soldiers that charged towards Bai Ming-shui. Golden core phenomenons, flora myriad weapons. Dong Fangji had managed to cultivate 2 golden core phenomenons. The crowd was in an uproar. Even Nangong Shi had a grim expression. Even he was not confident of winning against Dong Fangji who had 2 golden core phenomenons. It's over. Dong Fangji rose slowly and 2 golden core phenomenons circled around her. Her aura had already climbed to its peak as she looked down at Bai Ming-shui. Bitch, it's useless even if you admit defeat now. Her voice was cold. She had intended to use her 2 phenomenons to deal with Nangong Shi. To think that she would have to use them prior to that. 2 phenomenons? Bai Ming-shui had a calm expression without any fear or surprise in her eyes. Indeed, it's time to end things. She said indifferently, however, I'm not the one who will admit defeat. Before her sentence was finished, Bai Ming-shui channeled her blood qi with all her might. Splash. Her blood qi surged and a deafening tsunami sound echoed from her body. Tsunami blood. Cries of surprises came from the crowd. Even Shimin Zhe and Dong Fangyi were shocked. All of them were void reversions and knew very well how difficult it was to cultivate to the tsunami blood realm. It was even rarer than golden core phenomenons. There were many people in the cultivation world who could condense golden core phenomenons. However, there were very few cultivators who could cultivate tsunami blood. Boom. Bai Ming-shui did not retreat or dodge Dong Fangji's 2 golden core phenomenons. Instead, she strode forward and soared into the air. She threw out a punch with her left hand. In her right hand, her sword was shrouded by layers of martial Dao astral qi that was indestructible as she slashed out. Her blood qi surged as though a tsunami was surging within her. Boom. Poof. A punch and a sword. The purple qi dissipated and the soldiers were beheaded. Right in front of everyone, the 2 golden core phenomenons that Dong Fangji had just conjured were destroyed by Bai Ming-shui's punch and sword. The place fell into an uproar. Chapter 1359, Don't Mess with Her. Chapter 1359, Don't Mess with Her. Every single person with a double phenomenon was a peerless paragon. In this generation there were less than a handful who could cultivate a double phenomenon. The most famous double phenomenon came from the monster incarnate of Chaos Essence sect, Tian. He cultivated the legacy phenomenon of the human emperor, Chaos Ocean. Thereafter, he fused with the world-cleansing green lotus of the Buddhist monasteries and surpassed the human emperor, forming an unprecedented chaos green lotus phenomenon. However, Tian's brilliance was completely overwhelmed by someone else during the previous phenomenon ranking. The legendary Tao Lord Desolate Marshal cultivated 3 unprecedented golden core phenomenons and dominated the phenomenon ranking. He overwhelmed everything and suppressed 2 primordial races, shocking the world. That battle also made Desolate Marshal famous. The cultivators of the 3 aristocratic families were shocked when they saw Dong Fangji cultivate a double phenomenon. The cultivators of the Dongfang aristocratic family were even more invigorated. They thought that their family clan had given birth to a peerless paragon that was comparable to Dian and Desolate Marshal. However, the excitement in everyone's eyes turned into shock the moment they saw what happened next. Two golden core phenomenons were shattered by Bai Mingshue's sword and fist. How was that possible? Could one truly release such a terrifying power after cultivating the martial Dao? Even the commanders of the three aristocratic families, Shiminzei, Dongfang Yi and Nangong Ling, were shocked, let alone the golden cores and nascent souls present. Nangong Ling, Lu Hanyin and Ru Xian knew that Bai Mingxue was Su Zimo's eldest disciple and were long prepared. Even so, the three of them gasped when they saw that. Bai Mingao stood in the crowd and was completely stunned. Prior to this, he belittled the martial Dao and even mocked his sister for cultivating it because it had no golden core phenomenon. But now, the power released by Bai Mingshue's body and bloodline was something that a golden core phenomenon could not withstand. Two golden core phenomenons were destroyed by a single punch from her. For the past 3 years, Bai Mingao cultivated painstakingly in the main hall of the clan without slacking off at all. However, he had not expected that he would fall so far behind Bai Mingxue in just 3 years. The difference between them was getting wider. Is this the power of the martial Dao? How many transformations has Bai Mingxue cultivated to? Before this, there were also people who cultivated blood chi golden cores, but their strength was definitely not so terrifying. I reckon that Bai Mingxue has already broken through to the 7th transformation of the martial Dao, astral infusion. That's right. When she attacked earlier on, her fist and sword were shrouded by a unique power. That should be astral chi. Instantly, a commotion broke out in the crowd. Naturally, Su Zimo was not surprised by that. His essence spirit was damaged and he looked listless the entire time, as though he was lethargic and his eyes were about to close. However, nobody knew better than him how terrifying the martial sutra was. Among the 9 transformations of the martial Dao, in the later 3 transformations, every single one was a leap in quality and brought about a complete transformation. Right now, Bai Mingxue was at the 8th transformation of the martial Dao, Indestructible Diamond. If Dian was reborn at the Golden Core realm, he might be able to fight against her. However, Dongfang Ji was way too far from that. Instantly, things changed on the battlefield. Dongfang Ji had just formed 2 Golden Core phenomenons when they were shattered by Bai Mingxue. She could not help but shudder and her face turned paler, even her organs were shaken violently. Her eyes flashed with panic and fear. That punch and sword strike had not only destroyed her Golden Core phenomenons, but also her confidence, pride and past glory. Dongfang Ji, you've lost. Bai Mingxue strode forward with a cold expression and slashed in reverse towards Dongfang Ji's head. Go. Right then, a bronze mirror filled with blood chi floated over from the battlefield. It shone with 6 spirit patterns and suddenly shone with a sanguine light that descended on Bai Mingxue. Bai Mingxue glanced at the spectator area. There were outsiders interfering. In the spectator area, Shimin Jingrui had an unfriendly expression as he glared at Bai Mingxue on the stone platform. His fingers behind his back were conjuring hand seals as he controlled the blood-colored mirror in midair. It's the Khanate spirit weapon, Blood Light Mirror. That looks like Shimin Jingrui's weapon. Why is it on the battlefield? Many Baiming clansmen were stunned. In reality, the cultivators of the 3 aristocratic families present had naturally recognized that it was Shimin Jingrui's weapon. However, the cultivators of the 3 aristocratic families did not expose him out of respect. What are you guys doing? The aristocratic family competition is all one-on-one. Do you guys want to bully with numbers? Bai Mingao was extremely smart and could not help but holler when he saw what was going on. The cultivators sneered coldly and ignored him. Spectator area. Nangong Ling glanced sideways at Shiminzei and Dongfang Yi with a mocking expression. What? You can't afford to lose? The aristocratic family competition has always been about fair fights. What's this? Dongfang Yi's expression did not change. It's not the aristocratic family competition now. It's a personal feud between Dongfang Ji and Bai Mingxue. Shiminzei nodded slightly as well. That's right. Jingrui is already engaged to Jir, so he naturally can't watch her get bullied. It's only right for him to attack. You guys can even spin the way they're bullying with numbers into something righteous. How shameless can you guys get? Ru Xian could not help but stifle a chuckle. Nangong Ling said indifferently, Guys, let me advise you not to mess with Bai Mingxue. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences. Ha ha ha. Shiminzei could not help but burst into laughter as though he had heard the greatest joke in the world as he shook his head. I really want to see how a slut of the Baiming clan in the territory of my Shiman family can make me deal with any consequences today. Nangong Ling retracted his gaze and did not persuade further. He had no intention of attacking either. With his judgment, he knew that even if Shiman Jingrui attacked, he might not be Baiming Shue's match. The bloodlight mirror was created from the bones of more than 100 ancient remnant beasts and was soaked in demon blood all year round, emitting an extremely evil aura. The bloodlight that descended was extremely damaging to cultivators. In fact, even some golden core phenomenons could not withstand the corrosion of that bloodlight. However, Baiming Shui merely frowned when the bloodlight enveloped her. Her blood qi was strong and surged like a tsunami. Even the blood of pure-blooded ferocious beasts could not hurt her, let alone the blood of ancient remnant beasts. However, the sword in her hands dimmed instantly and its edge was gone when it was tainted by the blood light. Thankfully, the sword was a perfect grade spirit weapon. If it was at supreme grade, it would have been destroyed within a few breaths. When she saw that, Dongfangji was invigorated and hope reignited in her eyes. With a tender shout, she controlled the heavenly essence spear and thrust it towards Baiming Shui. At the same time, she retrieved a black iron ruler from her storage bag and injected spirit energy into it. 6 spirit lights burst forth from the iron ruler. It was another Khanate spirit weapon. Hollow ruler. The Baiming clansmen recognized the Khanate spirit weapon right away. That was because this spirit weapon was a treasure of the Baiming clan to begin with. A cold glint flashed through Baiming Shue's eyes. Back then, Dongfangji used the hollow ruler to shatter her golden core. That scene was etched in her memories. Today everything would come to an end. Chapter 1360 Furious from Embarrassment. Chapter 1360 Furious from Embarrassment. The sword in her hand was already tainted by the blood light. Baiming Shui abandoned it and welcomed the incoming heavenly essence spear. She strode forward and reached out. As a Khanate spirit weapon, the speed of the heavenly essence spear was way too fast. It was merely a silver light that streaked by and arrived instantly. However, Baiming Shui's palm grabbed the silver light. The silver light dissipated and the heavenly essence spear fell into Baiming Shui's palm. It revealed its true form and danced continuously, wanting to break free. Baiming Shui harumphed coldly and channeled her blood qi, exerting strength in her palm. The spirit light on the spear was drowned by Baiming Shui's blood qi instantly and dimmed. Dongfangji had completely lost control of the heavenly essence spear. Swash! The moment the heavenly essence spear arrived, a black shadow descended as though it wanted to slice the void into two. Khanate spirit weapon, hollow ruler. Baiming Shui's expression was unchanged as she raised her right hand and opened her fingers to grab the falling hollow ruler. The expressions of the cultivators changed and they exclaimed. Grabbing the incoming heavenly essence spear barehanded and the hollow ruler were two completely different situations. As long as the tip of the heavenly essence spear was avoided, it was not much of a threat. However, the power of the hollow ruler was extremely terrifying. Even cultivators of the Shiman aristocratic family who specialized in body tempering would have their bones and tendons snapped. Piak! The hollow ruler landed in Baiming Shui's palm. Baiming Shui did not move. In fact, there were no emotions in her eyes. Someone managed to receive the Khanate weapon, the hollow ruler, barehanded. The cultivators ground their teeth and winced. Was that a body of flesh and blood? Disbelief filled the eyes of the cultivators. Dongfangji finally panicked. Her 2 Khanate spirit weapons were snatched away by Baiming Shui barehanded. Even if she used other trump cards, there was no way she could be a match for Baiming Shui. She moved and wanted to retreat. Unfortunately, Baiming Shui was even faster than her. Baiming Shui did not stop after receiving the 2 Khanate spirit weapons. In a flash, she arrived before Dongfangji. Whoosh! Baiming Shui stabbed towards Dongfangji with the heavenly essence spear in her hand. How dare you! Dongfangji shrieked and tore a protection talisman in her palm. A jade green light spread and enveloped her. Poof! When the heavenly essence spear struck the gigantic green barrier, it was as though an airbag was punctured and the barrier dissipated instantly. Dongfangji's pupils constricted and her face turned pale. Her protection talisman could defend against a nascent soul's attack. She had not expected that the talisman would be shattered by Baiming Shui instantly. Before she could think further, she felt a sharp pain beneath her abdomen. A domineering power struck her golden core. Crack, crack, crack. Dongfangji's eyes widened. She could clearly feel cracks appearing on her golden core, densely packed and covering it instantly. Shattered. Bai Ming Shui waved the hollow ruler and shattered her golden core with a single strike. Thud, thud, thud. Dong Fangji retreated continuously and staggered. Her legs went limp and she could not even stand as she fell to the ground. The shattering of her golden core meant that her 50 years of cultivation were instantly destroyed. Initially, golden cores in their 50s were in their prime because they had a lifespan of 500 years. But now that her golden core was shattered and her spirit energy was depleted, her lifespan had instantly fallen to 100 years of age for mortals. In her 50s, it meant that she had already spent more than half her lifespan. Within a few breaths, her black hair had already turned white and a few wrinkles appeared on her face, revealing her old age. Spectator area. With a bang, Dong Fang-yi crushed the teacup in his hand. "Bitch, how dare you?" His expression darkened. He had not expected that the ants of the Bai Ming clan would dare to attack paragons of their aristocratic families so viciously during the aristocratic family competition. Dong Fang-yi's face was filled with killing intent. Bai Ming Shui was not the only one who was going to die today, all the Bai Ming clansmen were going to die with her. As though he sensed danger, the Bai Ming clan leader looked terrified and uneasy. The other clansmen were jittery as well. Although Bai Ming Shui won, none of them looked excited at all as though they had lost their parents. In the crowd, Su Zimo was the only one who was calm. On the stone platform, Dong Fangji was defeated and her golden core was crippled. Immediately after, another figure charged over. "Bitch, how dare you hurt Jir? You must have a death wish." Shimin Jingrui charged forward and cursed. Waving his palm, the bloodlight mirror in midair buzzed and spun towards Bai Ming Shui. Bai Ming Shui's expression was unchanged as she raised the hollow ruler and slashed forward. Clang. An ear-piercing sound of metal clashing echoed when the two Khanate spirit weapons collided. The bloodlight mirror was sent flying. At the same time, Shimin Jingrui had already arrived and punched Bai Ming Shui. Instantly, an extremely strong killing intent burst forth from that punch. The Shimin aristocratic family specialized in metal spirit arts and killing techniques. Bai Ming Shui had a mocking expression as she put away the hollow ruler and punched Shimin Jingrui's fist as well. Bang. There was a dull sound of defeat when the fists clashed. Bai Ming Shui was motionless and her expression was indifferent. However, Shimin Jingrui's expression changed continuously. Immediately after, his arm cracked in an extremely terrifying manner. His entire arm was crippled by Bai Ming Shui's punch. Shimin Jingrui was also a decisive person. Gritting his teeth, he did not dare to linger and flew out of the stone platform without making a single sound. "Jingrui, take me with you," Dong Fangji shouted. Her golden core was crippled and she did not even have the ability to jump off the stone platform. When Shimin Jingrui heard Dong Fangji's shout, he looked over instinctively and was shocked. Right now Dong Fangji was old and withered, she no longer had any of her former glory. A look of disgust flashed through the depths of Shimin Jingrui's eyes as he turned and fled. "Why you?" Dong Fangji was so angry that she was shivering with a desperate expression. Lifelong vows to the depths of the world, everything was a lie. "What are you guys waiting for? Suppress that slut." Shimin Zhe stood up with a grim expression and shouted. Swash, swash, swash. 5 figures stood out from beneath Shimin Zhe and released a powerful might. They were surrounded by dermic powers and charged towards Bai Ming Shui with murderous auras. Nascent souls. Bai Ming Shui crippled the most outstanding golden core cultivators of the Dongfang and Shimin aristocratic families and enraged Shimin Zhe and Dongfang Yi completely. "The few of you, capture those Bai Ming clansmen. I'm going to cripple all of their cultivations one by one and torture them slowly." Dongfang Yi waved his hand and gave the order as well. Before long, a few nascent souls of the Dongfang aristocratic family stood out as well and charged towards the Bai Ming clan. Because of Bai Ming Shui's domineering appearance, this aristocratic family competition had spun completely out of control. Chapter 1361, Against Nascent Souls. Chapter 1361, Against Nascent Souls. Shimin Zhe, Dongfang Yi, what are you guys doing? When Nangong Ling saw that the situation was not right, he slammed the table and stood up, hollering. Lu Hanyin and Ru Xian stood up as well, frowning. Earlier on, they could still sit by even when Dongfang Ji and Shimin Jingrui ganged up on Bai Ming Shui. After all, she was Su Zimo's eldest disciple and there was no danger even against 2 golden cores. But now that 5 nascent souls of the Shimin aristocratic family had attacked, the situation was completely different. This was blatantly bullying Baiming Shui. They were taking advantage of the fact that the Baiming aristocratic family had no backing. Nangong Ling, let me ask you what you want to do. Dongfang Yi pointed at Baiming Shui with a cold expression and said frostily, that slut is ruthless to cripple a paragon of our Dongfang aristocratic family. If I let her leave, our Dongfang family will be disgraced. The Dongfang family sure is overbearing. Lu Hanyan sneered, why? People from the Dongfang family are allowed to cripple the golden cores of others while others are not allowed to do the same? My Dongfang family is an ancient aristocratic family that has been passed down till this day and is comparable to the super sects of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sections. So what if we're this overbearing? Dongfang Yi's aura was domineering as he shouted, everyone in the Baiming clan, a declining aristocratic family, are all ants in my eyes. Today Baiming Shui, that slut, is not the only one who will die. All the Baiming clansmen shall die with her. Dongfang Yi Shiminzei, I advise you guys to stop as soon as possible. Nangong Ling said slowly with a grim expression. After all, he had known the 2 of them when he was young. Furthermore, the 3 aristocratic families were on the same side. He was truly reminding them out of goodwill. That was because no one knew better than him. Nobody knew what sort of a terrifying person was hidden in the crowd beneath. That was an existence comparable to a primordial taboo. Right now, that taboo was still sleeping with his eyes closed. Once that taboo was awakened, it would definitely be earth-shaking the moment he opened his eyes. Nobody could withstand it. The entire Shimin villa would be overturned. However, Nangong Ling's persuasion only caused Shiminzei and Dongfang Yi to sneer. Nangong Ling, before this, I ignored the fact that your Nangong family was protecting the Baiming clan. Shiminzei said coldly, now, you want to break off with our 2 aristocratic families because of a slut from the Baiming clan. Nangong Ling, let me tell you, this is the territory of Shimin Villa. This is my territory. Shiminzei had a dignified gaze and exuded a tremendous might as he said slowly, I don't care how strong you are after going out to train, Nangong Ling. Today, even if you're a true dragon, you'll have to coil yourself up. The crowd was also in chaos. Nobody expected the commanders of the 3 aristocratic families to enter a standoff because of Baiming Shui. Shiminzei's words were extremely decisive without any room for negotiation. If Nangong Ling persisted, he would have to fight head-on against the 2 aristocratic families. Furthermore, Shiminzei's words were definitely not a threat. This was the territory of the Shimin aristocratic family after all. There were definitely Dharma characteristic experts hidden in this villa. If the Nangong and Shimin aristocratic families were to clash, those experts would definitely appear and the Nangong aristocratic family would definitely not be a match. Nangong Ling's forehead was filled with sweat and he looked troubled. Right then Lu Hanyan secretly tugged at Nangong Ling's clothes and looked into the crowd. Nangong Ling looked over instinctively. The crowd below was in chaos. However, among the crowd, there was a green-robed man who was calm and composed. His eyes were closed as though he was indifferent to everything around him. Even when nascent souls of the Shimin and Dongfang aristocratic families appeared, he did not open his eyes. Ru Xian sent a voice transmission. Strange, didn't Granduncle Master say that no one is allowed to bully Baiming Shui? Why doesn't he seem anxious? Let's wait and see first. It won't be too late to act by the time Granduncle Master gives any instructions. Lu Hanyin sent a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness. Nangong Ling nodded and sat back slowly. On a stone platform on the other side. A hint of panic flashed through Baiming Shui's eyes as well against the 5 nascent souls of the Shimin aristocratic family. She would not be afraid even against 50 golden cores. However, she was currently surrounded by 5 nascent souls. Before she cultivated the martial Dao, she was only a golden core. Even if she cultivated the martial Dao or even reached the 8th transformation, her cultivation was only equivalent to the golden core realm. There was a major cultivation realm difference between the nascent soul and golden core realm. To Baiming Shui, that major cultivation realm was an insurmountable chasm. She had never fought against nascent souls before, let alone the fact that she was surrounded by 5 of them now. She could not help but feel a little nervous. Instinctively she looked towards Su Zimo. He stood in the crowd with his eyes closed, seemingly oblivious to everything. Bai Ming-shui realized that she could only rely on herself to resolve the situation. Naturally, Su Zimo would not attack. As a cultivator, this was a situation that Bai Ming-shui would definitely face in the cultivation world in the future. In fact, things might be even more dangerous at that time. It was impossible for Su Zimo to be by her side all the time. The current situation was a test for Bai Ming-shui. If she could pass this test, she would be able to grow rapidly. Furthermore, in Su Zimo's heart, the difference of a major cultivation realm was not considered as bullying. As his eldest disciple, if she could not even deal with this situation, he would have wasted his time teaching her all these years. On the stone platform. Bang! Bang! The entire stone platform quaked violently as the 5 nascent souls of the Shimin aristocratic family descended one after another. Among the 3 aristocratic families, the Shimin aristocratic family specialized in body tempering and melee combat. Zang. The 5 successors of the Shimin aristocratic family summoned their destiny dermic weapons, sabers and swords. In a flash they surrounded Bai Ming-shui. At the nascent soul realm, one had already cultivated an essence spirit and could utilize dermic powers. If it was any other cultivator, they might not have been able to withstand the pressure and would have surrendered. However, Bai Ming-shui channeled her blood qi with all her might under the immense pressure. A tsunami sound echoed from her body and her aura surged, rising to its limits. Ah! She reared her head and howled into the skies. Instead of retreating against the encirclement of 5 nascent souls, she attacked first. Boom! Bai Ming-shui strode forward and charged before a nascent soul. She gripped the heavenly essence spear that was shrouded by astral qi and stabbed it towards the person's head. You must have a death wish. The person's expression was cold as he slashed in reverse towards the heavenly essence spear. Clang! Sparks flew as the weapons collided. A look of shock flashed through the person's eyes. As a cultivator of the Shimin aristocratic family, his body and bloodline were strong to begin with. Now that he was at the nascent soul realm and was refining his body and bloodline with dermic powers, it was even more terrifying. Not only that, he had the help of his destiny dermic weapon. In his opinion, he could defeat Bai Ming-shui with a single slash. He could kill her with a second slash right after. However, he truly had not expected that he would feel an extremely terrifying power surge into his body through his saber the moment they clashed. His body and bloodline could not withstand the ferocity of that power. Chapter 1362, Indestructible Diamond. Chapter 1362, Indestructible Diamond. The nascent soul of the Shimin family felt that he was not facing a human, but a humanoid pure-blooded ferocious beast. Thump. Against that terrifying power, the nascent soul knelt onto the ground right away. The crowd was shocked. Shiminzei and Dongfang Yi widened their eyes in disbelief as well. Bai Ming-shui was so strong that she could even suppress nascent souls. Bang! Bai Ming-shui extended her leg and poked the person's chest. The nascent soul's body shuddered and his heart exploded as an arrow of blood spurted out. His blood qi drained rapidly and he looked dispirited. At the same time, the other 4 nascent souls of the Shimin aristocratic family behind her closed in. Bai Ming-shui swung the hollow ruler in reverse and slashed behind her. Clang! The hollow ruler clashed against 4 dermic weapons. Snap! The hollow ruler shattered. Among them, a nascent soul's dermic weapon was a Khanate perfected Lord dermic weapon that broke the hollow ruler. However, the 4 nascent souls shuddered and could not help but retreat a step. Even with a spirit weapon and 1 against 4, Bai Ming-shui had the advantage in terms of strength. Although the hollow ruler was shattered, Bai Ming-shui was invigorated and broke free from her initial panic and fear. With a burning gaze, she strode forward and attacked once more. She raised the heavenly essence spear and stabbed towards the face of a nascent soul. Break! The nascent soul hollered and raised his sword to slash. Earlier on, this person was the one with the Khanate perfected Lord dermic weapon and snapped the hollow ruler. He was the first person Bai Ming-shui targeted. Clang! As expected, the heavenly essence spear broke. However, that person shuddered as well. The immense power imbued within the heavenly essence spear surged into his body through his dermic weapon and he did not feel good either. Thankfully, he had tempered his body regularly. If it was a nascent soul of the Dongfang or Nangong aristocratic families, he would have been injured by that single attack. The moment that person shuddered, Bai Ming-shui's gaze intensified and she leaned forward, cutting into his embrace instantly. She avoided the dermic weapons of the other 3 nascent souls and pushed against his chest. Snap. The person's chest caved in as he fell limply with widened eyes. In the blink of an eye, 2 nascent souls of the Shiman aristocratic family were crippled. After cultivating the martial Tao, Bai Mingshue's strength, speed, reaction and spirit perception had already reached an extremely terrifying realm. Swash. An evil gust of wind blew behind her. Bai Mingxue seemed to have eyes behind her head, and without turning back, a series of crackling sounds came from her body. Her entire body suddenly shrank as though she had transformed into a midget and avoided the sharpness of the 3 dermic weapons by a hair's breadth. At Tsunami Blood Realm, Tendon's transformation was even easier to master. The remaining 3 nascent souls were stunned. Bai Mingxue stretched her body once more and arrived before a nascent soul, grabbing his throat. Instantly, the nascent soul's throat was ripped as he fell to the ground, convulsing. At the spectator area, Shiminze's expression was already extremely grim. In his heart, Bai Mingxue was already a dead person. However, he was a void reversion after all. Due to his status, he endured it and did not attack. On the other side, the nascent souls of the Dongfang aristocratic family who were initially charging towards the Baiming clansmen noticed this as well and turned around. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Before the 7 nascent souls of the Dongfang aristocratic family arrived, they summoned their destiny dermic weapons, swords or spears, and charged towards Bai Mingxue through the void. Bai Mingxue sensed danger and felt immense pressure. On the stone platform, there were only 2 nascent souls from the Shiman aristocratic family left. If the 2 perfected lords of the Shiman aristocratic family were to engage in melee combat and restrict her movement techniques, she would be in an extremely dangerous situation with the perfected lords of the Dongfang aristocratic family attacking her from afar. At that thought, Bai Mingxue strode forward and charged towards the 2 nascent souls of the Shiman aristocratic family, ignoring the incoming flying swords and spears. The 2 nascent souls were experienced as well and no longer attacked proactively. They changed their tactics and focused on restraining Bai Mingxue. A decisive look flashed through Bai Mingshue's eyes as she suddenly reached out for a nascent soul's dermic weapon. You must have a death wish. The nascent soul of the Shiman aristocratic family was delighted when he saw that. He hurriedly twisted the sword in his hands, wanting to sever Bai Mingshue's palm. Piak. Bai Mingxue grabbed his sword with her palm and scarlet blood flowed out, but the sword did not move at all. The nascent soul looked flustered. Bai Mingxue took advantage of the situation and slapped the person on the head, killing him. The other nascent soul of the Shiman aristocratic family could not escape either. Bai Mingxue hurried forward and killed him using her injured palm. Poof, poof. At that moment, she had expended a lot of mental and physical energy on the consecutive pursuits. Although she managed to avoid 5 of the dermic weapons that were chasing her, she could not dodge the other 2. Her abdomen was pierced by a spear. There was a bone-deep wound on her thigh that was dripping with blood. Furthermore, she had just killed 2 nascent souls of the Shiman family forcefully and her palm was filled with blood. She looked extremely wretched. Bitch, prepare to die. A nascent soul of the Dongfang aristocratic family looked down at Bai Mingxue. To them, her severe injuries were equivalent to loss of combat strength. Although Bai Mingxue could still stand on the spot, she was already at the end of her rope. But soon, the expressions of the 7 nascent souls from the Dongfang aristocratic family changed. Their eyes widened and their pupils constricted. Pust! Gasps could be heard from the crowd as well. At the spectator area, Shiminze and Dongfang Yi had grim expressions as they glared at Bai Mingshue's wounds and murmured, "How is that possible?" Under countless gazes, Bai Mingshue's wounds were healing at a visible speed. Even around the gigantic hole in her abdomen area, meat grew rapidly and intertwined to heal her wound. In that short period of time, the wound on Bai Mingshue's palm had already healed. The wound on her thigh had already formed a scar and in the blink of an eye, it began to fall off. What terrifying regeneration capabilities. I got it. It's Indestructible Diamond. Bai Mingxue has cultivated to the 8th transformation of the martial Tao, Indestructible Diamond. Cries of surprises came from the crowd. The 8th transformation of the martial Tao, Indestructible Diamond, did not mean that one would be invulnerable against weapons, water and fire at this cultivation realm. After all, no matter how strong one's physique was, they could still be injured against terrifying strength or weapons. The so-called indestructible diamond was to ensure one's combat strength as much as possible with immense regeneration capabilities after injuries. Even pure-blooded ferocious beasts could not match such frightening regeneration capabilities. What are you guys waiting for? Dongfang Yi could not help but shout, "Are you guys waiting for that slut to recover before attacking?" Chapter 1363 Dragon Elephant Force, Bloodline Awakening. Chapter 1363, Dragon Elephant Force, Bloodline Awakening. Swash, swash, swash. Dermic weapons tore through the void and sped towards Baiming Shui, arriving instantly. Baiming Shui tossed and turned on the stone platform. She was agile and graceful like a WRM as she charged towards one of the nascent souls without touching the ground. All the cultivators witnessed Baiming Shui's power of bloodline and physique. Even the nascent souls of the Shiman aristocratic family were suppressed. There was no way the perfected lords of the Dongfang aristocratic family could go against her head-on. The nascent soul reacted extremely quickly and retreated. At the same time, he conjured hand seals and released a dermic art that enveloped Baiming Shui. Boom. Baiming Shui raised her head and punched heavily against the dermic art. With just her physique and blood chi, Baiming Shui, who was at the Golden Core realm, managed to dispel the dermic art of a nascent soul. Of course, she lost the chance to catch up to that person after the collision with the dermic art. Bang, bang, bang. The dermic arts of the other nascent souls blanketed the skies as well. Dermic weapons and dermic arts suppressed Baiming Shui's space continuously such that she could not take care of both ends and could not get close to any cultivator. Of course, her regeneration capabilities were shocking after she cultivated to the indestructible diamond realm. It would be difficult for the 7 nascent souls of the Dongfang aristocratic family to encircle and kill Baiming Shui within a short period of time as well. Even when they ganged up to kill a single golden core, the 7 nascent souls were in a stalemate. Dongfang Yi's expression was steely. In fact, he had the urge to make a move to kill Baiming Shui personally. However, given his status and the fact that everyone was present, he thought for a moment and glanced sideways, whispering, "Wu Hua, the 5 of you head up and suppress that slut as quickly as possible." Perfected Lord Wu Hua nodded slightly and arrived in midair in a flash. The other 4 nascent souls followed closely behind. Hurry, look. Another 5 nascent souls of the Dongfang aristocratic family are attacking. Baiming Shui is finished. She's in deep trouble and the Baiming clan might be annihilated. What a waste of her amazing talent. I've never heard of a cultivator who can cultivate to the 8th transformation yet. Speaking of which, it's no wonder why Dao Lord Desolate Martial is the #1 monster incarnate in history. The Martial Sutra that he created can actually cultivate such a terrifying power. The crowd was in chaos as the cultivators discussed. Nangong Ling, Lu Hanyan and Ru Xian were nervous. The 3 of them turned to look at Su Zimo instinctively. At that moment, Su Zimo was still calm and composed with his eyes closed, as though he had not seen Baiming Shui in danger. Granduncle Master is way too composed. He's just going to let his disciple be surrounded just like that? Ru Xian was secretly speechless. Nangong Ling was puzzled as well and sent a voice transmission. Perhaps Granduncle Master has other intentions. Right then, the situation on the battlefield changed with the addition of 5 nascent souls. Initially, Baiming Shui could hold out against the 7 nascent souls. But now, she was clearly struggling against the encirclement of 12 nascent souls. She had been through consecutive battles. Furthermore, they were against nascent souls. The toll on Baiming Shui was immense. If not for the fact that she cultivated the martial Dao and had a robust blood chi and stamina, she would have collapsed a long time ago. As time passed, Baiming Shui's movement technique gradually slowed down and she was no longer as agile as before. Poof. One of Baiming Shui's dodges became sluggish and a new wound appeared on her arm with fresh blood flowing. Poof. Before the wound healed, another flying sword sliced across Baiming Shui's thigh, causing blood to spray. Her figure staggered. However, she grit her teeth and remained silent with an expressionless face. "Bitch, let's see how long more you can last." Perfected Lord Wu Hua smirked with a mocking gaze. Poof, poof, poof. More wounds appeared on Baiming Shui's body. No matter how strong her regeneration capabilities were, she could not heal in time. Before long, Baiming Shui was covered in blood and injuries, looking extremely miserable. However, there was no intention of submitting in her eyes. On the contrary, it was as though a terrifying power was gradually awakening within her. In truth, ever since she cultivated the martial Tao, Bai Ming-Xue had never fought against true experts or faced any calamities of life and death. Even with Su Zimo's guidance, her accomplishments were limited. Back then, Dai Yu also abandoned Su Zimo and Songlang Mountain Range for a year before he truly grew up. Now that she had defeated Dongfang Ji, the knot in her heart was gone and her mind was clear. She felt an unprecedented joy and gained a new understanding of the martial Tao. Furthermore, under the immense pressure and the constant stimulation of life and death, the bottleneck of the 9th transformation of the martial Tao had finally loosened. Ah! Suddenly Bai Ming-Xue reared her head and howled into the skies. Although she was drenched in blood, it was as though a shackle in her body had been broken. An unprecedented power burst forth from her body, ready to gush out. The howl was extremely terrifying. It sounded like a dragon roar and an elephant cry. Even perfected Lord Wu Hua and the others felt a sharp pain in their ears as their bodies swayed and they nearly fell from midair. Could it be, the 9th transformation of the martial Tao Dragon Elephant Force? A wave of shock and astonishment could be heard from the crowd. Bang, bang, bang. Suddenly, Bai Ming-Xue swung her fists in all directions to release the surging power in her body. The incoming perfected Lord Dermic weapon was sent flying by Bai Ming-Xue's fists and fell into the crowd, causing a commotion. But the expressions of perfected Lord Wu Hua and the others changed. Even a perfected Lord Dermic weapon could not hurt Bai Ming-Xue. Everyone joined forces and suppressed this woman. Perfected Lord Wu Hua shouted and channeled his essence spirit fanatically, conjuring a powerful Dermic art. The other nascent souls conjured hand seals and Dermic arts one after another as well. Instantly, the Dermic powers around the stone platform surged. 12 Dermic arts tore through the air and released a terrifying might that suppressed Bai Ming-Xue like thunder. Bai Ming-Xue's eyes were cold as her bloodline surged and circulated fanatically. A power from the ancient era had silently awakened. Splash! The sound of a tsunami could be heard in the void. This was not tsunami blood. Right in front of everyone, a dark ocean appeared behind Bai Ming-Xue and emitted an extremely cold aura. Bai Ming Ocean. Bai Ming-Ao murmured with a confused expression. His golden core phenomenon was Bai Ming Ocean, so he was extremely familiar with that ocean. However, the power of the ocean behind Bai Ming-Xue was clearly countless times stronger than his own Bai Ming Ocean. In the face of this ocean, his golden core phenomenon was like a small puddle. How could this be? Bai Ming-Ao blinked and asked curiously, there shouldn't be a golden core phenomenon when cultivating the martial Tao. This. The voice of the Bai Ming clansman trembled slightly. This is not a golden core phenomenon, but a bloodline phenomenon. Right then Su Zimo opened his eyes as well. His gaze landed on the ocean behind Bai Ming-Xue, as though it could penetrate the depths of the ocean into the core of the Bai Ming Ocean. Within it, seemed to be an even more terrifying existence. Chapter 1364 Kuan. Chapter 1364, Kuan. Bloodline Phenomenon. Shimanzai and Dongfang Yi jolted upright as they exclaimed in shock. Both of them were void reversions and knew very well how difficult it was to cultivate one's bloodline to the tsunami blood realm. Above tsunami blood was the legendary bloodline phenomenon. It was said that only the god race bloodline could produce innate phenomenons. It was almost impossible for human cultivators to cultivate phenomenons through their bloodlines. The two of them could still maintain their composure if Bai Ming-Xue had merely cultivated to the 8th or even 9th transformation of the martial Tao. However, they could no longer sit still when they saw the bloodline phenomenon. A thought crossed both their minds. They wanted to kill Bai Ming-Xue. How terrifying would Bai Ming-Xue be if she could condense a bloodline phenomenon at the Golden Core realm? Neither of them dared to imagine. Bang! Boom! Boom! On the battlefield, the Bai Ming Ocean surged and blanketed the skies, engulfing perfected Lord Wu Hua and the others instantly. The seawater was chilling to the bones. Among the 12 nascent souls, some of them had lower cultivation realms and weak blood chi. In fact, there were even rows of ice shards in their bloodlines that froze their limbs. 2 of the nascent souls were pale as a layer of frost appeared on their faces. Their gazes dimmed and they sank into the sea, vanishing with their lives. The moment the bloodline phenomenon descended, it devoured the 2 nascent souls before long. The remaining 10 nascent souls struggled endlessly within the Bai Ming Ocean as well, wanting to break free. However, the seawater surged with an extremely cold aura. It was not so easy to break free. Only perfected Lord Wu Hua and another two tore apart their protection talismans and rode on their dermic weapons, fleeing into the distance without turning back, wanting to get out of the radius of the phenomenon. All of a sudden, in the middle of the deep ocean, a gigantic semicircular wave surged as though a massive object was floating beneath the surface of the ocean. One after another, terrifying waves surged above the surface of the ocean and howled. The few nascent souls that were initially struggling in the seawater were drowned by the waves and could no longer float as they died. Only perfected Lord Wu Hua and another two who escaped far away were lucky to survive. Even so, the three of them were scared out of their wits and blood drained from their faces. Perhaps because they were frozen by the seawater, they were shivering with frightened expressions. All of a sudden, two cold beams of light appeared on the surface of the ocean. It was a pair of gigantic eyes. The eyes were so huge that they resembled the blazing sun in the skies. Compared to those eyes, all the cultivators were like tiny specks of dust. All the cultivators looked up with their mouths widened in shock. Under countless gazes, a massive object gradually appeared on the surface of the ocean and revealed its true appearance. It was so massive that it seemed like it was thousands of kilometers long and blanketed the skies, enveloping the entire space above the Shiman villa. Thud. Some cultivators could not withstand the pressure and knelt on the ground one after another. Against that massive object, all the cultivators present, including the nascent souls and void reversions, felt shudders. It was a bloodline suppression. It was a fear that stemmed from the ancient era. Heavens! What's going on? Some of the cultivators were trembling in fear. The Dharma characteristic Tao lords who were initially meditating in the Shiman villa were alarmed by the commotion and looked up. Psst! They shuddered and gasped. What is that demon beast? Could it be a whale from the sea? Impossible. Even the gigantic whales are far from this terrifying. That aura seems to be. Some Dharma characteristic Tao lords thought of a possibility and their hearts skipped a beat. In a cave abode in a corner of the villa, an old man in seclusion opened his eyes slowly. His face was filled with wrinkles and his eyes were aged. It was unknown how long he had lived. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the layers of obstacles and land on the massive being above the firmaments. Even with his experience, he could not help but frown when he saw that massive object and murmured, Kun, one of the primordial 9 races. On the battlefield, the massive object's eyes were even colder than the seawater as they landed on perfected Lord Wu Hua and the other two. The three of them were still in the Biming Ocean. To it, that was already a violation of its territory. Perfected Lord Wu Hua fled into the distance as though he had gone mad. Suddenly, the demon beast opened its mouth and released an irresistible suction force, as though it wanted to devour the entire world. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The seawater gushed into its mouth. Perfected Lord Wu Hua and the other two could not help but be sucked towards the demon beast. In the blink of an eye, the three of them were devoured by the demon beast and vanished entirely. Dead. 3 nascent souls were devoured alive by that demon beast. Including the 5 nascent souls of the Shiman aristocratic family, a total of 17 nascent souls were either dead or injured. Nobody was spared. Although Nangong Ling and the other two were mentally prepared, they were still shocked speechless. The bloodline phenomenon that Biming Shui cultivated was not the Biming Ocean, but the massive demon beast hidden in the depths of the ocean. At that moment, Biming Shui was in a strange state as well. Ever since she released her bloodline phenomenon, Biming Shui frowned and turned to look in the direction of Biming Town with a lost gaze. Right then an extremely cold killing intent appeared. A warning flashed in Biming Shui's mind. An intense sense of danger descended and almost suffocated her. A terrifying spirit consciousness fluctuation spread through the void. At the spectator area, Dongfang Yi and Shiman Zai's glabellas shone at the same time. Their spirit consciousnesses condensed and released an essence spirit secret skill that descended on Biming Shui. As void reversions and commanders of 2 aristocratic families, they had no intention of doing it personally given their status. However, the 2 of them could no longer hold it in after Biming Shui's bloodline phenomenon descended. They had to step in to kill Biming Shui. The 2 of them had a tacit understanding and did not even use any dermic arts or weapons. Instead, they used the most lethal killing move of void reversions, Essence Spirit Secret Skills. Essence Spirit Secret Skills were killing techniques that targeted the Essence Spirit directly. It was almost impossible for nascent souls to defend against it, let alone golden cores. Like a saber, the spirit consciousnesses could slice through Baiming Xue's mind instantly. Nangong Ling sensed the spirit consciousness fluctuation and quickly realized something. However, it was too late for him to stop it. Don't? He could only exclaim. Too late. A vicious glint flashed through Dongfang Yi's eyes. Shiminzei said coldly as well, "It's your honor to die in the hands of the two of us, slut." Chapter 1365, I'm her master. Chapter 1365, I'm her master. Sister. Baiming Ao exclaimed with a look of despair. The Baiming clan leader's eyes dimmed as well as he sighed internally. It was not easy for the Baiming clan to produce such a rare monster incarnate. To think that she would be killed by the three aristocratic families before she could grow further. Even Nangong Ling and the others could not interfere in time, let alone outsiders. Furthermore, even if everyone from the Baiming clan reacted, who could stop a void reversion's essence spirit secret skill? Nobody. The burst of an essence spirit secret skill was extremely fast and descended almost instantly. On the stone platform, Baiming Xue could only watch helplessly. She could not resist against a power of this level. No matter how strong her bloodline phenomenon was, it could not defend against essence spirit secret skills. This was the suppression of a major cultivation realm. Void reversions could kill golden cores with a single thought. All of a sudden, Baiming Xue felt her wrist heat up. 6 mysterious Sanskrit sounds echoed in her mind instantly. Immediately after, a divine golden barrier of light appeared around her with mysterious, ancient words etched on it. It's the Buddha beads that Master gave me. The thought flashed through Baiming Xue's mind. In a flash, Shiminzei and Dongfang Yi's essence spirit secret skills descended and passed through Baiming Xue's bloodline phenomenon, colliding heavily against the golden barrier. The two energies collided and the barrier trembled violently with ripples on the surface. However, the entire process was silent. In the end, the two essence spirit secret skills could not break through the defense of the golden barrier and dissipated silently. Baiming Xue's face was pale as she retreated a few steps. Although her bloodline phenomenon had dissipated against the impact of the two essence spirit secret skills, she survived. Baiming Xue panted slightly with shock and joy in her eyes. The golden barrier around her could no longer hold on and its glow dimmed, dispersing into emptiness as though everything that happened was an illusion. In midair, Shiminzei's eyes widened and his sneer froze on his face as he looked at everything in disbelief. The ferocity in Dongfang Yi's eyes gradually turned into shock. All around the massive Shimin villa, from the front to the back, the initial clamor of chaos had suddenly become complete silence where one could even hear a pin drop. All the cultivators looked at the girl on the stone platform with dumbfounded expressions as though they had seen a ghost. How was that possible? Baiming Xue was not dead after two void reversions attacked and released their essence spirit secret skills. What happened in that instant earlier on? A golden barrier seemed to have appeared around Baiming Xue. What was that? Countless questions surfaced in the minds of the cultivators. Nangong Ling's heart skipped a beat as he swept his spirit consciousness across Baiming Xue's wrist and he could not help but shudder. The Mingwang prayer beads. To think that Granduncle Master would value her so much that he even gave her the Mingwang prayer beads. A deep envy grew in Nangong Ling's heart. Essence spirit dermic weapons were extremely precious. As for the Mingwang prayer beads, they were the best among essence spirit dermic weapons and were the treasures that supported Daming Monastery in the past. In that short period of time, Shiminzei and Dongfang Yi gradually realized as well. It's an essence spirit dermic weapon. Shiminzei narrowed his eyes and his gaze flickered. Although he did not know that it was the Mingwang prayer beads, he guessed from his experience that Baiming Xue must be wearing an extremely powerful essence spirit dermic weapon. Baiming Xue was only at the Golden Core realm and could not use this essence spirit dermic weapon. Even so, she managed to defend against their two essence spirit secret skills with the power of the essence spirit dermic weapon alone. How much power could be unleashed by that essence spirit dermic weapon if he got his hands on it? Almost instantly, Shiminzei and Dongfang Yi were filled with greed. Could this be the secret guarded by the Baiming aristocratic family? A thought flashed through Dongfang Yi's mind. The more he thought about it, the more likely it was the truth. Even if Baiming Xue managed to avoid a calamity with her essence spirit dermic weapon, she won't be able to escape death. That's right, there are way too many methods for void reversions to kill her. The difference between them is not something that an essence spirit dermic weapon can make up for. Gradually, voices sounded from the crowd. Bitch, where did you obtain your essence spirit dermic weapon? Shimanze was no longer in a hurry to attack as he asked slowly. He also thought that this essence spirit dermic weapon might have something to do with the secret guarded by the Baiming aristocratic family. Therefore he wanted to find the truth from Baiming Shui. Baiming Shui's heart skipped a beat. She remained silent and pursed her lips. There was no way she would expose her master. She already knew that her master was severely injured in the Battle of Heaven and Earth Valley and his essence spirit was damaged. He could not even use his dermic powers and his combat strength was greatly reduced. If her master's location was exposed right now, it would be equivalent to his death. Without waiting for the super sex and primordial races outside, the strength of the 3 aristocratic families alone was enough to kill her master. Not telling? Shimanze smirked coldly and released his pressure as a void reversion towards Baiming Shui. It's fine if you don't want to tell me. I have many methods that can cause you endless pain. Shimanze revealed a cruel smile. At that time, you'll kneel beside my feet and beg me to kill you. I gave that essence spirit dermic weapon to her. All of a sudden, a calm voice sounded from the crowd and spread through the entire place. Nangong Ling, Lu Hanyan and Ru Xian were shocked. All the cultivators looked over. Among the Baiming clan, a green-robed man was squeezing through the crowd and walking slowly outside. The man had refined features but his face was withered and yellow, as though he was severely ill. He looked extremely weak without any cultivation and did not seem like a cultivator. However, that person's eyes were extremely bright and spirited. Where are you going? Don't go and die for nothing. When Baiming Ao saw Su Zimo stand out, he grabbed Su Zimo's arm instinctively. Su Zimo did not even look at him and merely flung Baiming Ao's palm gently. His palm went numb and he could not exert any strength for a long time. Baiming Ao's mouth was agape and he was stunned for a moment. In that short period of time, Shimanze and Dongfang Yi had long scanned Su Zimo's body and did not sense any threat. Both of their expressions relaxed quickly. Oh. Shimanze looked at Su Zimo with a mocking gaze and smiled gently, asking, "And who are you?" "I'm her master." Su Zimo pointed at Baiming Shui on the stone platform and said indifferently. Ha 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 ha. Shimanze and Dongfang Yi could not help but laugh. Many cultivators of the 3 aristocratic families roared in laughter as well. The current situation was extremely obvious. Baiming Shui was already a dead person. At this moment, anyone who stood out would have to die with her. Therefore, in their eyes, this green-robed man was a fool who did not know what was good for him. At the spectator area, Nangong Ling, Lu Hanyan and Ru Xian did not laugh. The 3 of them looked at Shimanze and Dongfang Yi silently with strange gazes, as though they were looking at 2 dead men. Chapter 1366, Murder. Chapter 1366, Murder. You're her master, so you gave her an essence spirit dermic weapon? Yes, that makes sense. Dongfang Yi nodded and looked at Su Zimo mockingly, asking with a smile, "So, what do you want to do now that you've stood out?" "Murder." Su Zimo was expressionless and merely uttered one word. Actually, he had no intention of attacking when he came to the aristocratic family competition. However, notwithstanding the fact that the Shiman and Dongfang aristocratic families were overbearing and sent more than 10 nascent souls to encircle Baiming Shui, 2 void reversions even attacked personally. That crossed Su Zimo's bottom line. Most of the time, he could stand by idly and let Baiming Shui endure sufficient pressure. It would also help her grow rapidly. However, everything changed when void reversions attacked personally. Even if his essence spirit was damaged, he was still Dao Lord Desolate Marshal. He would not allow anyone to humiliate his disciples. Murder? Dongfang Yi could not help but laugh. Who do you want to kill? You. When Su Zimo said that word, he suddenly strode forward and stomped heavily on the ground. Boom. There was a deafening sound. The ground beneath Su Zimo's feet was ruptured by his feet. The crowd was caught off guard and almost fell with shocked expressions. A figure rose from the ground, bringing with it dust clouds, and arrived above the spectator area in the blink of an eye. Baiming Ao was shocked as he looked up at the figure in midair and murmured instinctively, Is that still a human?" The figure was way too different from the sickly figure in his mind. Su Zimo did not waste his breath on Dongfang Yi and leaped into midair. His black hair danced and he descended from the skies like a divine being with a burning gaze. How dare you? Dongfang Yi hollered with a shocked and furious expression. He truly had not expected that this seemingly sickly man would dare attack him and even release such horrifying burst power. Dongfang Yi's reaction was extremely fast as well as he swiped his storage bag and a black spear appeared in his hands. Dermic powers surged and the spear trembled, shimmering with 5 dermic patterns. It was a perfect grade Dao Being dermic weapon. Die. Dongfang Yi hollered and conjured hand seals with his left hand. He gripped his spear with his right hand and thrust it towards Su Zimo while releasing his dermic art with his left hand. Boom. The dermic art was the first to descend and smashed heavily against Su Zimo's chest. Dongfang Yi was delighted. Even the body of a Dharma characteristic Dao Lord could not withstand his dermic art. However, the joy in his eyes turned into shock the moment it appeared. That dermic art did not affect Su Zimo at all. It was as though he was completely fine. Although Su Zimo's bloodline was not strong, his body could not be considered as a body of flesh and blood. The Green Lotus True Body was created with a Grade 6 creation Green Lotus as the foundation and was supplemented by top dermic weapons of many super sects. The toughness of the Green Lotus True Body was comparable to a Khanate Dao Lord dermic weapon. A Void Reversion dermic art could not shake him at all. Against the incoming spear, Su Zimo suddenly extended his palm and gripped the cold tip of the spear at lightning speed, thrusting it forward. A tremendous force surged over. Dongfang Yi could not hold on to the spear at all. The spear slid in his palm. Dongfang Yi shuddered and lowered his head slowly. In his chest, a gigantic hole was carved out by Su Zimo using the back of the spear. The spear drenched in blood protruded from Dongfang Yi's back in reverse. His heart was already pierced by the spear and his blood qi drained rapidly. Dongfang Yi's eyes flashed with disbelief. All of a sudden, his vision blurred and a figure seemed to flash by. Not good, Dongfang Yi exclaimed. As a paragon of the Dongfang aristocratic family, he reacted extremely quickly and chose to eject his essence spirit right away. A divine light flew out from above his head, wanting to escape into the distance. However, before it could truly leave his body, a huge shadow enveloped him. Poof! Su Zimo slapped Dongfang Yi on the head. That palm strike ruptured Dongfang Yi's head and his essence spirit was shattered as well. He died on the spot. Dead. Dongfang Yi, the commander of the Dongfang aristocratic family who was insufferably arrogant earlier on, was slapped to death right in front of everyone. From the moment Su Zimo attacked till Dongfang Yi's death, the entire process took less than 3 breaths. The eyes of the cultivators nearly popped out. How dare you? Shiminzei pointed at Su Zimo with a trembling voice. He could sense an extremely dangerous aura coming from Su Zimo. Die too. Su Zimo's gaze was like lightning as he strode forward. Without any unnecessary movements, he threw a punch towards Shiminzei's face. The aura of that punch was way too ferocious and Shiminzei did not dare to take it head-on in his fear. Swash! A bronze mirror flew out from his glabella. Buzz! Shiminzei activated his spirit consciousness. The bronze mirror expanded against the wind and grew rapidly, blocking in front of him like an indestructible shield that shone with 6 dermic patterns. A Khanate Dao Being dermic weapon. In his opinion, he would be able to escape as long as he could defend against Su Zimo's attack. The Dharma characteristic Dao Lords in the villa must have noticed such a huge commotion. Once they arrived, this person would definitely die. As those thoughts crossed Shiminzei's mind, Su Zimo's fist had already struck the bronze mirror heavily. Boom. There was a deafening sound. Shiminzei shuddered. Snap. Immediately after, he heard a strange sound as though something had shattered. The next moment, his vision darkened and he felt a sharp pain in his head, losing consciousness. Even till the end he did not understand how he died. However, the other cultivators saw everything clearly. Compared to Dongfang Yi, Shiminzei died even faster. Shiminzei summoned his bronze mirror and Su Zimo threw a punch. That punch penetrated the bronze mirror. The Khanate Dao Being dermic weapon was penetrated by Su Zimo's body. The punch penetrated the bronze mirror and struck Shiminzei's face, smashing his head into sludge and destroying his essence spirit on the spot. Once again the world fell into a momentary silence. The throats of the cultivators seemed to be choked by an invisible pair of hands. They could not breathe. Terror, shock and fear filled everyone's faces. Among the cultivators of the three aristocratic families, the strongest among them were void reversions, Dongfang Yi, Shiminzei and Nangong Ling. In their hearts, void reversions were absolute existences that were high and above. However, in the blink of an eye, 2 void reversions were reduced to 2 corpses. Furthermore, these 2 commanders were hammered to death by fists. None of the Foundation establishment cultivators, golden cores or even nascent souls had ever seen someone so decisive to kill. All of them were scared out of their wits and froze on the spot, not daring to move. Chapter 1367 Tao Lord Purple Peak. Chapter 1367 Tao Lord Purple Peak. Bai Ming-ao looked at the green-robed figure and his mind was in chaos. He was completely stunned. Mr. Su, the frail and sickly scholar, had vanished completely and there was only a single image left in his mind. It was how Su Zimo descended from the skies and killed the 2 void reversions like a divine being. Bai Ming-ao had never seen such power before. He felt a sense of trepidation and regret when he recalled how he had treated this person with sarcasm and mockery repeatedly. It was lucky that Mr. Su was broad-minded. If it was anyone else he might not have survived even if he had 10 lives. Did Sister become Mr. Su's disciple? Bai Ming-ao gradually understood. It's no wonder why my sister has changed so much in just 3 years and can even suppress nascent souls. So it's all because of Mr. Su. It would be a lie to say that Bai Ming-ao was not envious. However, although he was not old, he knew that he had treated Su Zimo badly previously and would most likely not have the chance to join the latter. Even Bai Ming-shui stood on the stone platform in a daze, let alone Bai Ming-ao. She could not recover and her eyes were filled with shock. Even though she had joined Su Zimo as his disciple, she had never seen him in action. Initially, she thought that his combat strength would be greatly reduced after his essence spirit was injured and he could not even release dermic arts. However, she had not expected that Su Zimo would be able to kill 2 void reversions on the spot with just his physical body. He did not require his essence spirit or dermic arts at all. Bai Ming-shui suddenly had the urge to cry when she looked at the skinny but torrential figure. She had suffered countless grievances over the years. However, no one had ever helped or stood up for her. Yet, at this moment, someone stood in front of her and defended her from all damage, even going against the ancient aristocratic families. Desolate Marshal. My master is Tao Lord Desolate Marshal. The one and only Tao Lord Desolate Marshal in history. Bai Ming-shui was extremely emotional and her eyes were bloodshot. On the other side, Nangong Ling shook his head gently and sighed. We've still come to this. He was worried. Prior to this, he had reminded Shiminzei and Dongfang Yi countless times to not be overbearing and to know when to stop. However, the 2 of them did not heed his words and continued with their provocations. They were the ones who went overboard. Ru Xian said, even an outsider like me can't stand it. How is it acceptable for void reversions to step in to kill a golden core? Lu Hanyan glanced at Nangong Ling and said softly, Senior brother, you're worried about the Nangong family's decision, right? Yes. Nangong Ling nodded without saying anything. Bang, bang, bang. Right then, powerful auras burst forth from various parts of the villa and the world shook. Where did this ruffian come from? How dare you act so brazenly in our Shimin villa? You must have a death wish. A series of shouts sounded. Most of the cultivators present were Foundation establishment cultivators and golden cores. The massive pressure of the spirit consciousness that arrived caused all of them to shudder. Dharma characteristic realm. That was a pressure that could only be released by the spirit consciousnesses of Dharma characteristic Tao Lords. Even the void reversion realm was a realm that most cultivators could not reach. Dharma characteristic cultivators were even more revered. Some of the cultivators present had never seen Dharma characteristic Tao Lords up till this point of their cultivation. To think that more than 10 Dharma characteristic Tao Lords would appear today. Tao Lord Purple Peak. Nangong Ling recognized the Dharma characteristic Tao Lord leading them and could not help but exclaim. Tao Lord Purple Peak was a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord who was extremely famous among the 3 aristocratic families. 2,000 years ago, he traveled to the Middle Continent and became enemies with a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord of Illusion Fiend cult. The Tao Lord of Illusion Fiend cult was once ranked 62 on the Dharma characteristic ranking. However, Tao Lord Purple Peak won the battle completely. That was also the battle that brought Dao Lord Purple Peak to fame. Within the three aristocratic families, it was said that Dao Lord Purple Peak's combat strength could have him ranked in the top 30 of the Dharma characteristic ranking. Furthermore, that was 2,000 years ago. To think that Dao Lord Purple Peak would actually be cultivating wholeheartedly in the Shiman Villa, and now he was alerted. Senior Purple Peak. Nangong Ling shouted and bowed. This is an important matter. Senior, please gather the other elders to discuss and reconsider before advancing. Nangong Ling could not expose Su Zimo's identity. However, his words were already a reminder for Dao Lord Purple Peak to stop in time and not act rashly. Humph. Dao Lord Purple Peak sneered, what a joke. A ruffian is killing people brazenly in our Shiman Villa, but you want me to reconsider my actions? Even if Dao Lord Purple Peak could tell what Nangong Ling was implying, he would not take it to heart. Even if Dharma characteristic Dao Lords of the Nangong aristocratic family were here, he would definitely step in to kill this green-robed cultivator, let alone a mere junior like Nangong Ling. Dao Lord Purple Peak looked at Su Zimo with a cold expression and said slowly, I don't care what your background is or what sect you are from. If you dare to kill in my Shiman Villa, even if you're a disciple of a super sect, you'll have to pay with your life. Nangong Ling sighed internally. Dao Lord Purple Peak did not realize who he was facing at all. How many titular disciples and conjoined body mighty figures of super sects had died in the Dao inheritance ground, let alone disciples of super sects? You want to kill me? Su Zimo raised his head slightly and looked at Dao Lord Purple Peak with a mocking expression. Kill him. Dao Lord Purple Peak did not waste his breath on Su Zimo and waved his hand, giving the order. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Dermic weapons tore through the air one after another. Dermic powers surged around the Dao Lord Dermic weapons and almost covered the skies, sealing off all of Su Zimo's escape routes. Su Zimo's expression was cold as he ignored the incoming Dao Lord Dermic weapons and rose. How dare you ignore Dao Lord Dermic weapons? You truly have a death wish. The Dharma characteristic Dao Lord's expressions turned cold. Bang, bang, bang. Dermic weapons struck Su Zimo one after another, but they did not pierce through his body as the Dharma characteristic Dao Lords expected. On the contrary, many Dao Lord Dermic weapons were repelled. Be it flying swords, spears or bronze mirrors, none of them could pierce Su Zimo's flesh. The crowd was shocked. That scene had completely exceeded everyone's expectations. Even Dao Lord Purple Peak and the others were shocked, let alone the low-level cultivators present. There was no lack of perfect-grade Dao Lord Dermic weapons among the Dao Lord Dermic weapons that were summoned earlier on. However, a perfect Dao Lord Dermic weapon could not even pierce the green-robed cultivator's skin, let alone kill him. Furthermore, the green-robed cultivator did not release any dermic arts or talismans during the collision and merely defended with his body. Could a person's body truly be cultivated to such an invulnerable state? Dao Lord Purple Peak suddenly understood the meaning behind Nangong Ling's words. Unfortunately, it was too late. Chapter 1368 Sweeping Ahead. Chapter 1368, Sweeping Ahead. Boom. While a Dharma characteristic Dao Lord was slightly distracted, Su Zimo had already arrived and ruptured his head with a punch. The Dharma characteristic Dao Lord died on the spot. Although the bloodline of the Green Lotus true body was not strong, its body was comparable to Khanate Dao Lord Dermic weapons and was indestructible. The Dharma characteristic Dao Lord's body could not withstand that punch. Swash. In a flash, Su Zimo arrived before another Dharma characteristic Dao Lord and released a shuddering malevolent chi with a ferocious gaze. The Dharma characteristic Dao Lord was almost scared out of his wits when he met Su Zimo's gaze and felt chills run down his spine. Who was Su Zimo? In the Battle of Heaven and Earth Valley, how many conjoined body mighty figures and mighty figures of the primordial races had died in his hands, let alone Dharma characteristic Dao Lords? Although Su Zimo's essence spirit was damaged, his aura did not change at all. The Dharma characteristic Dao Lord was stunned by Su Zimo's aura and reacted slower. He was slapped on the head by Su Zimo and died on the spot. In the blink of an eye, two Dharma characteristic Dao Lords died in succession. The deaths of Shimin Zhe and Dongfang Yi had already caused an unprecedented stir among the cultivators present, as though the sky was collapsing. But now, with the death of two Dharma characteristic Dao Lords, the cultivators were completely dumbfounded. Those experts that only existed in the legends and were unreachable fell from midair right before their eyes, destroyed with their lives. The seemingly sickly cultivator killed the Dharma characteristic experts without hesitation or fear. It was as though these Dharma characteristic Tao Lords were no different from ants in his eyes. Good, good, good. Tao Lord Purple Peak had a furious expression as he said coldly, "How dare you start a massacre in the Shiman Villa? I'm going to peel your tendons and burn your bones into ashes." Boom. He attacked all of a sudden and a purple mountain flew out from his glabella. It expanded against the wind and instantly transformed into a purple mountain. It was a Khanate Tao Lord Dermic weapon. That purple mountain was something he found in an ancient ruin and had followed him for many years. That was also the reason for his Tao title. Go. Tao Lord Purple Peak pointed forward. The purple mountain descended with a loud boom and a large shadow engulfed the entire Shiman Villa, emitting a terrifying might. The cultivators were shocked. Many cultivators could not even withstand the pressure and fled into the distance. The purple mountain seemed like it wanted to crush all living beings in the villa into sludge with nowhere to run. Boom. Suddenly the purple mountain stopped. Right in front of everyone, a skinny figure stood beneath the purple mountain, holding the massive mountain motionlessly with a single arm. Compared to the purple mountain, Su Zimo's figure was as tiny as a speck of dust. However, no matter how Tao Lord Purple Peak channeled his dermic powers, he could not suppress Su Zimo. Humph. Su Zimo sneered and stomped on the ground with one foot. With a boom, he lifted the purple mountain with one arm. Swoosh. Su Zimo carried the purple mountain and charged towards a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord in the distance. The Dharma characteristic Tao Lord's expression changed starkly as a phantom appeared within his body. It rose rapidly and was 60 feet tall, towering and emitting a powerful aura. A heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. The strongest method of Dharma characteristic Tao Lords. Boom. The moment the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was summoned, the purple mountain had already collided against it. The heaven and earth Dharma characteristic dissipated instantly. The Dharma characteristic Tao Lord's body was also shattered by the purple mountain and he died on the spot before his essence spirit could escape. 3 Dharma characteristic Tao Lords were already dead. Bang, bang, bang. The remaining Dharma characteristic Tao Lords felt the pressure and hurriedly channeled their essence spirits, summoning their heaven and earth Dharma characteristics as phantoms soared into the skies. Tao Lord Purple Peak's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was 86 feet tall and was purple all over, resembling a gigantic fiend celestial. It was the most striking. Almost at the same time, many heaven and earth Dharma characteristics attacked in a shocking manner. Bang, bang, bang. The gigantic fists of many heaven and earth Dharma characteristics as well as weapons struck Su Zimo's body and let out loud bangs. However, he was not injured at all. At this moment, one of the reasons why the Green Lotus true body was so powerful was revealed. Unless it was a peerless monster incarnate of the Dharma characteristic realm such as Tao Lord Hatred or Monk Daming, there was no way to injure the foundation of the Green Lotus true body. Under the encirclement of many heaven and earth Dharma characteristics, Su Zimo pushed forward with his Green Lotus true body and attacked consecutively. 3 more Dharma characteristic Tao Lords died. Everyone release your essence spirit secret skills. Tao Lord Purple Peak roared with a pale expression. This was his last resort. In a fight, cultivators would not use their essence spirit secret skills unless necessary. But now that the green-robed cultivator was invulnerable against weapons, water and fire, they had no way of retaliating and felt a sense of helplessness. Be it their dermic arts or weapons, none of them could break through that person's defense. Only essence spirit secret skills could ignore his body and kill his essence spirit directly. Terrifying spirit consciousness fluctuations appeared in the void. Although they were silent, they were filled with fatal killing intent. Not good. Bai Ming Xue's heart skipped a beat. The Buddha beads on her wrist were clearly her master's essence spirit dermic weapon. Now that her master's essence spirit was injured and he did not have the essence spirit dermic weapon with him, how could he defend against the essence spirit secret skills? She wanted to head forth and hand the Mingwang prayer beads over to Su Zimo. But now the ones attacking were Dharma characteristic Tao Lords. Even nascent souls and void reversions would have difficulty approaching a battlefield of this level, let alone a golden core like her. She could not move at all against the pressure of the battlefield. Bai Ming Xue could only watch helplessly. Master. She wanted to shout. However, the moment she spoke, she realized that her voice was erased by the spirit consciousness fluctuation around her and dissipated into emptiness. Su Zimo's expression was mocking when he sensed the incoming essence spirit secret skills. He did not dodge, defend or retaliate. The essence spirit secret skills surged into his consciousness one after another and struck his essence spirit. All of a sudden, a faint green mist emanated from his essence spirit and emitted a strange power that devoured all the essence spirit secret skills. The essence spirit secret skills pierced Su Zimo's consciousness but were devoured by the life-severing curse without causing any ripples. The life-severing curse was a power that could only be released after a mighty figure of the witch race sacrificed his essence spirit. Even though more than half of it was dissipated by the green lotus sword, the remaining power was not something that any Dharma characteristic Tao Lord's essence spirit secret skill could match. Su Zimo was tainted by the life-severing curse. The power of the curse enveloped his essence spirit and formed a curse barrier that could isolate his connection to heaven and earth. After devouring the power of the essence spirit secret skills, the curse barrier clearly became stronger. Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. Previously, he had a bold thought about whether he could borrow the power of a conjoint body mighty figure to dispel the power of the life-severing curse. From the looks of it, that thought was completely infeasible. The life-severing curse would strengthen by devouring other spirit consciousnesses and his situation would only get worse. Chapter 1369, I'm Desolate Marshal. Chapter 1369, I'm Desolate Marshal. He's fine despite that. Tao Lord Purple Peak's face was pale as his eyes shone with fear. There was no way for him to fight. Be it dermic arts, dermic weapons or essence spirit secret skills, none of them could injure this person. Swash, swash, swash. Tao Lord Purple Peak and the remaining Dharma characteristic Tao Lords activated their movement techniques and fled far away. They stood in midair and distanced themselves from Su Zimo, not daring to advance recklessly. All of those Dharma characteristic Tao Lords were now in fear. None of them possessed the same arrogance and ruthlessness as before. Sneering internally, Su Zimo did not continue to chase after those people. His essence spirit was damaged after all and he could not use dermic powers, he could not even fly through the air. In the battle earlier on, he only relied on the burst of his body to fight those Dharma characteristic Tao Lords in close combat. Now that those Dharma characteristic Tao Lords were far away, it would probably take him a lot of time and energy to chase them. Before long, today's events would spread through the three aristocratic families. At that time, if the conjoint body mighty figures were alarmed, the situation would no longer be under his control. The Green Lotus True Body could not use dermic powers. If a conjoint body mighty figure attacked with his full strength, it would definitely be a threat to him. Follow me, let's leave this place first. Su Zimo came to Bai Mingshue's side and whispered. Bai Mingshue did not say anything and merely nodded before following. Fu-fu. Suddenly, a chuckle sounded from the villa. Immediately after, an extremely terrifying aura spread out and its might descended, enveloping the skies of the entire Shimin villa. The pressure released by the Dharma characteristic Tao Lords earlier on was worlds apart compared to this spirit consciousness. The cultivators were shocked and could not move at all, merely watching with widened eyes. Even the Dharma characteristic realm was beyond the imagination and knowledge of most cultivators. The moment that aura descended, all the cultivators were silent and could not imagine what important figure was alarmed. Not good. Nangong Ling's heart skipped a beat. Some low-level cultivators might not be able to tell, but he had joined 100 Refinement Sect and had even come into contact with mighty figure Extreme Fire before, so he was extremely familiar with that aura. This was a power that belonged to the conjoint body realm. Lu Hanyin had a grim expression as she sent a voice transmission secretly. This is bad. A conjoint body mighty figure is hidden in this villa. If their granduncle master was not injured, they would naturally not be worried over a mere conjoint body mighty figure. But now that his essence spirit was damaged, his combat strength was greatly reduced. He was most likely doomed against a conjoint body mighty figure. Unknowingly, a skinny old man had already arrived in midair. Nobody noticed when that figure appeared, as though he had been standing there the entire time. Although the figure was small, he seemed to have fused with the entire world. Standing in midair, he emitted an incomparable aura. All the cultivators looked up at that figure as though they were facing the entire world. Greetings, Elder Chiu, Dao Lord Purple Peak and the others were delighted when they saw the old man. The fear in their hearts dissipated as they bowed hurriedly and shouted. Elder Chiu raised his head slightly and swept his gaze across the battlefield. Finally, it landed on Su Zimo with a cold expression. Fellow Taoist, you went on a massacre for no reason in the territory of the Shiman aristocratic family. Are you going to turn and leave without saying anything? No reason? Su Zimo was expressionless. Isn't the fact that two void reversions of the Shiman and Dongfang aristocratic families joined forces to try and murder my disciple reason enough? Just because of that. Elder Chiu's lips curled with a mocking expression. Notwithstanding the fact that your disciple isn't dead, even if she was, so what? If she was dead, the ones killed here won't be just the few of them. Su Zimo said slowly, if she had died here, everyone from the Shiman villa would have to die with her. Audacious. Insolent. What a bold claim. Dao Lord Purple Peak and the others shouted in shock. The Shiman aristocratic family had dominated the south region for countless years but had never been threatened like this. You sure are bold. Elder Chiu's eyes flashed with killing intent as well. I'm curious now. Given your capabilities, you shouldn't be a nobody. Just who are you? How dare you threaten the Shiman aristocratic family? Elder Chiu wanted to kill. No matter the name or background of the green-robed cultivator, he was bound to die. If this green-robed cultivator were to cause a huge ruckus and escape unscathed, what would happen to the reputation of Shiman Villa? How were they going to establish themselves in the cultivation world of the South region after today? Even if he was a disciple of a super sect, he had to pay with his life today. A terrifying dermic power fluctuation surged around Elder Chiu and the entire world trembled. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the skies, as though the apocalypse had arrived. The cultivators below were all jittery and did not dare to speak. The wrath of a mighty figure was something that could not be contained even in a vast ocean. Su Zimo's expression was indifferent as he looked at Elder Chiu, who was in midair, and said slowly, only 3 words. I'm Desolate Marshal. The moment those words were said, the air between them froze. It was as though those words possessed a powerful demonic power that caused time to stop. After the battle at Heaven and Earth Valley, the Dao-titled Desolate Marshal was almost a taboo for the cultivation world. Most Dharma-characteristic Dao Lords and conjoint body mighty figures were not even willing to discuss it. Dao Lord Purple Peak and the others were already scared out of their wits and nearly fell from midair. Suddenly they recalled a description of Desolate Marshal in the cultivation world. He wore green robes and had black hair, looking like a frail scholar. All those descriptions were way too similar to the person before them. The only difference was that he looked a little sickly. Desolate Marshal. It was Dao Lord Desolate Marshal. Dao Lord Desolate Marshal was exiled into the void by a half-martial ancestor and did not die. Furthermore, he descended in the south region. Earlier on, Elder Chiu was still filled with killing intent. However, when he heard those words, his pupils constricted and the dermic powers in his body dissipated instantly like a punctured airbag. Elder Chiu felt his limbs go cold and he could barely move. Although he was unwilling to believe it, he knew very well that this was Desolate Marshal. That aura, that gaze and that air of arrogance was something that only Dao Lord Desolate Marshal was worthy of possessing. This was a murderous aura that was accumulated after he killed countless paragons, monster incarnates and mighty figures. Even if outsiders wanted to imitate it, they wouldn't be able to. After figuring that out, Elder Chiu's first reaction was to turn and flee. How many people died in the Battle of Heaven and Earth Valley? Even the Dao Lords and mighty figures of the primordial races suffered immense losses, let alone the conjoint body mighty figures of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend super sects. Although he was at the conjoint body realm, he was already in his later years. Given his combat strength, Desolate Marshal could probably kill him with a single finger. Right now, it was already extremely courageous for him to repress the fear in his heart and stand in midair without retreating, let alone attack Su Zimo. Chapter 1370 Retreating Completely. Chapter 1370 Retreating Completely. Let's go. Su Zimo nodded to Bai Ming Shui and turned to leave the Shiman villa. The cultivators dispersed far away and opened up a path, as though they were hiding from something. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo and Bai Ming Shui disappeared from everyone's line of sight. The entire time, no one from the Shimin and Dongfang aristocratic families stood out to stop him. Even Elder Chiu, who was at the conjoint body realm, merely stood in midair with a terrible expression and remained silent. If anyone focused their gaze, they would notice that Elder Chiu's hands behind his back were trembling slightly. A long time after Su Zimo left, Elder Chiu finally heaved a sigh of relief. A breeze blew past and unknowingly, his back was drenched in cold sweat. Merely 8 minutes passed from the moment Su Zimo said those words until his departure. However, to Elder Chiu, it was as though 100 years had passed. It was as though he had just passed through the gates of hell and was half a step in. Thankfully. Elder Chiu panted slightly with a pale expression as he lamented internally, to think that it's Tao Lord Desolate Marshal. Who would have thought? I can't be blamed. No, this won't do. He gulped and thought to himself, Desolate Marshal's descent into the South region is a huge matter. I have to report this to the family master, elders and grand elders before making a decision. At that thought, Elder Chiu transformed into a streak of light in a flash and sped into the distance, disappearing before everyone's eyes. Nangong Ling and the other two heaved a sigh of relief as well. Nangong Ling arrived before the Baiming clansmen and said in a deep voice, all of you should leave as well. This matter is extremely important and there might be unforeseen circumstances if you guys stay here. Why yes. The Baiming clan leader nodded hurriedly. Baiming Ao mustered his courage and whispered, Senior Nangong, was the reason why you protected us previously, because of Senior Desolate Marshal? Nangong Ling nodded and did not hide anything. Desolate Marshal is our granduncle master. Your sister is my aunt master. Ah. Baiming Ao's mouth was agape and he was momentarily stunned, unable to figure out what was going on. After all, too many things had happened today. Even Dharma-characteristic Tao lords who had lived for thousands of years were shocked one after another, let alone a teenager like him. Nangong Ling continued, the 2 perfect grade spirit weapons you used were gifts from us to our aunt master. No wonder. Baiming Ao murmured softly and many questions in his mind were gradually resolved. He finally understood why his sister possessed perfect-grade spirit weapons. He finally understood why his sister could cultivate the martial Tao to such an extent in 3 years and undergo a complete transformation. That was because the frail man who had been recuperating in their family all these years was the legendary notorious Tao Lord Desolate Marshal. The martial Tao was established by Desolate Marshal. Who else could understand the martial Tao better than Tao Lord Desolate Marshal? At that moment, Baiming Ao's prejudice against Su Zimo had vanished completely, leaving only endless admiration in his heart. He had never seen such a scene before. A single Tao title was enough to render all the cultivators of the massive Shimin villa speechless. Even a conjoint body mighty figure who was almost at the peak of the cultivation world did not dare to say anything when he heard that Tao title, let alone nascent souls or Dharma-characteristic Tao lords. Against Desolate Marshal, even conjoint body mighty figures had to keep mum out of fear lest they angered him and attracted death. The might of a Tao title could reach such a level. Senior Nangong. Baiming Ao's heart skipped a beat as he thought of an opportunity for the Baiming aristocratic family. He could not help but ask, since my sister is your aunt master, will the Nangong aristocratic family stand on her side this time round and help our Baiming clan? Nangong Ling sighed gently and did not say anything. That was also the reason why he was in a difficult position. He could stand on the side of his granduncle master and Baiming Shui, but he might not be able to persuade his family clan to agree to this choice. If the Nangong aristocratic family was embroiled in a feud with granduncle master, he would be in an awkward situation. I've got to hurry back as well and report this matter to the family master, Nangong Ling said before leaving with Lu Hanyan and Ru Xian. Everyone from the Nangong aristocratic family left the Shimin villa one after another. Why are you in such a hurry? In midair, Ru Xian could not help but ask. Nangong Ling said in a deep voice, the descent of granduncle master is an important matter to begin with and has to be reported to the family clan. Furthermore, the news of his injuries can't be hidden for sure. Lu Hanyan nodded as well. Elder Chiu of the Shimin aristocratic family was merely frightened by granduncle master's Tao title and lost his ability to judge rationally. If he reports the matter of the villa as it is, the family masters and elders of the Shimin aristocratic family will definitely be able to tell that something is amiss. Ru Xian looked anxious. Doesn't that mean that Granduncle Master is in danger? It's highly possible. Lu Hanyin said, if the Shimin and Dongfang aristocratic families join forces and want to lead their conjoint body experts to kill Granduncle Master while his essence spirit is injured, he'll most likely be doomed. If a half-martial ancestor were to attack, it would be even more difficult for Granduncle Master to escape. Nangong Ling sighed with a worried expression as well. Even a half-martial ancestor will attack. Ru Xian was alarmed and asked instinctively. Under normal circumstances, most people who cultivated to the half-martial ancestor realm would enter seclusion cultivation in their sects in hopes of entering the ancestor realm. They rarely appeared. Nangong Ling said, this matter is extraordinary. After all, Granduncle Master is involved. There's a high chance that half-martial ancestor experts will be alerted. What should we do? Ru Xian was anxious. Should we send a message back to the Middle Continent right away and ask Grandmaster Extreme Fire to step in? It's too late. Nangong Ling shook his head. The South region is millions of kilometers away from the Middle Continent. Even after he receives the message, Grandmaster will have to rush over. How many days will pass by then? Furthermore, even if Grandmaster comes, he'll be alone. He's only just entered the mid-stage conjoint body realm. How many people can he defend against? The Nangong aristocratic family is probably the only one who can save Granduncle Master. Lu Hanyin analyzed calmly. Ru Xian nodded hurriedly as well. If the Nangong family is on Granduncle Master's side, the Dongfang and Shimin aristocratic families might not be able to hurt him even if they join forces. It's hard to tell. Nangong Ling sighed. The three aristocratic families have always been on good terms and are on the same side. It's not realistic for the Nangong aristocratic family to help an outsider. Furthermore, Granduncle Master's identity is unique and he's not accepted by the immortal, Buddhist and fiend Daos while being hunted by the primordial races. Given the pros and cons, it's unlikely that our Nangong family will take his side. After pausing for a moment, Nangong Ling took a deep breath. No matter what, I have to return and give it a shot. Whether or not it succeeds depends on fate. I hope that the heavens will bless Granduncle Master and resolve this crisis. Chapter 1371 Mystery of the Bloodline. Chapter 1371 Mystery of the Bloodline. Master, with your interference this time round, things with the Dongfang and Shimin aristocratic families are irreconcilable. It's probably going to be difficult to resolve this matter. Baiming Shui analyzed with a worried expression. That conjoint body mighty figure was afraid of your reputation and was scared off. However, the three aristocratic families have ruled over the South region for so long and they have many experts. As long as they gather and discuss, they might be able to discover your weakness. Master, I'm extremely grateful for everything you've done for me. However, a calamity is approaching. Please leave first and don't bother about me. Baiming Shui knew that given Su Zimo's current strength and powerful physique, it would be extremely easy for him to leave this place even if he could not use dermic powers. However, she was only a golden core. It would be wishful thinking if he wanted to take her together to escape from the South region. Su Zimo had a calm expression. You don't have to worry about this. I have my own plans. Baiming Shui did not persuade further when she heard Su Zimo's words. However, she continued frowning as though she had something on her mind. You're still worried? After the two of them walked for a while, Baiming Shui still had a lowered head, seemingly troubled. When he saw that, Su Zimo asked with a smile. Master, Baiming Shui looked at Su Zimo wanting to say something but stopped. When Su Zimo saw Baiming Shui's odd expression, he paused and turned to ask, why? What happened? Baiming Shui took a deep breath of air. Master, I entered the 9th transformation of the martial Dao Dragon Elephant Force, during my fight with some nascent souls of the Dongfang aristocratic family in the Shimin Villa. Thereafter, I cultivated a bloodline phenomenon as well. Yes. Su Zimo nodded. Speaking of which, your bloodline phenomenon is indeed rather shocking. There's a terrifying demon beast hidden within the Baiming Ocean. If I'm not wrong, there's a high chance that this demon beast is from one of the primordial 9 races, the Kuan race. Baiming Shui had a lost expression. I don't know either. However, the moment my bloodline phenomenon appeared, I vaguely sensed that something was calling to me from Baiming Town. Su Zimo's heart stirred and he narrowed his eyes in deep thought. Do you still have that feeling? Su Zimo asked. Yes. Bai Ming-shui nodded. Let's go. We'll check out Bai Ming Town. Su Zimo said before speeding towards Bai Ming Town with Bai Ming-shui. Before long, the two of them returned to Bai Ming Town. How is it? Su Zimo asked. Bai Ming-shui closed her eyes to sense and nodded. It should be here, but I don't know what it is exactly. Is there anything special about Bai Ming Town? Su Zimo looked at the town and asked. Bai Ming-shui smiled bitterly. There's nothing much. Over the years, Bai Ming Town has been searched by cultivators of the three aristocratic families. Even if a rock was passed down from the ancient era, it would have been taken away by the cultivators of the three aristocratic families, let alone treasures or secret skills. Where's the ancestral hall? Su Zimo asked again. Under normal circumstances, the ancestral hall of a clan was the most important place for a family clan and might contain some secrets. Bai Ming-shui shook her head. The ancestral hall has been torn down by the three aristocratic families countless times over the years. This ancestral hall was built by descendants and can't be anything special. Pausing for a moment, she continued, the only thing special about this town is that it was the origin of the Bai Ming clan. It can be considered as our final place of belonging. Su Zimo fell into deep thought. A moment later, Bai Ming-shui could not help but ask, Master, are you guessing that my feeling has something to do with the secret guarded by the Bai Ming aristocratic family? It's highly possible. Su Zimo nodded and did not hide his thoughts. Bai Ming-shui shook her head. However, if there's truly some secret in Bai Ming Town, it would have been discovered a long time ago. The Bai Ming clan has been passed down and has thousands of clansmen. Why am I the only one with such a strange feeling? When he heard that question, Su Zimo's eyes lit up as he blurted, Bloodline. What? Bai Ming-shui asked instinctively without understanding. Su Zimo said in a deep voice, You once said that the cultivation techniques and treasures of the Bai Ming aristocratic family were divided among the three aristocratic families and declined day by day. Restricted by the three aristocratic families to this place without any cultivation resources, nobody could travel outside. Therefore, there haven't been any powerful cultivators born over the years. Right now, the strongest in the Bai Ming family are only nascent souls. Bai Ming-shui said, However, I'm only at the Golden Core realm and can't compare to my predecessors. You're different from them. Su Zimo said, You've cultivated a bloodline phenomenon. Bai Ming-shui opened her mouth slightly and gradually understood. Su Zimo said, Cultivating a bloodline phenomenon is equivalent to awakening some power within your bloodline. That's the reason why you could sense something within Bai Ming Town. Bai Ming-shui's heart started racing. She could also vaguely sense that the secret guarded by the Bai Ming aristocratic family was very likely about to be unveiled. But what is that secret? How do we find it? Bai Ming-shui felt her mouth go dry and asked. Bloodline. Su Zimo said deeply, Perhaps your bloodline is the key. Without hesitation, Bai Ming-shui flicked her sharp fingernails and scratched her wrist gently. Instantly, a scar appeared on his wrist. Given Bai Ming-shui's current physique, even Khanate spirit weapons would have difficulty injuring her. They were not even as sharp as her fingernails. Fresh blood flowed out and dripped onto the ground beneath her. The blood seeped into the mud and vanished. There was a long silence. A look of disappointment flashed through Bai Ming-shui's eyes. All of a sudden, the ground quaked. Immediately after, an extremely terrifying aura burst forth and the entire Bai Ming town trembled violently as the ground quaked. Many Bai Ming town clansmen shouted and fled in all directions. Beams of light broke through the mud and dust, bursting forth from underground and illuminating the void. It's an ancient seal. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze at the light and exclaimed softly. To think that an ancient seal was hidden beneath Bai Ming town and the opportunity to trigger it was actually the bloodline of the Bai Ming clan. However, the prerequisite was that someone from the Bai Ming clan had to be able to cultivate a bloodline phenomenon and awaken the true power of the Bai Ming clan's bloodline. When he saw that, Su Zimo felt a little sad. Throughout history, the three aristocratic families had never given up on exploring the secrets of the Bai Ming clan. However, under the pressure of the three aristocratic families, it was difficult for their clansmen to cultivate. It was already rare for them to cultivate a golden core phenomenon, let alone a bloodline phenomenon. That was the reason why the secret of the Bai Ming clan was buried for so long without being discovered. The three aristocratic families racked their brains and resorted to unscrupulous means. However, they did not expect that this secret was killed by them personally. A freak combination of circumstances caused Su Zimo to arrive at Baiming Town. He wanted to sever his karma by taking in Baiming Shui as a disciple and imparting his Tao to her. If not for that, the secret of the Baiming clan would probably be buried forever. Chapter 1372 Divine Spring. Chapter 1372, Divine Spring. Before long the lights faded gradually. The appearance of Baiming Town changed drastically as well. The massive town seemed to have vanished and a gigantic pit appeared on the ground. It was dark and deep, leading to unknown places. Su Zimo said, "Let's go and take a look. The secret guarded by the Baiming aristocratic family should be beneath." Yes. Baiming Shui nodded. Worried about any danger, Su Zimo walked at the front with Baiming Shui behind him. Some of the Baiming clansmen were jittery and lingered around the pit, not daring to head down. About half an hour later, Su Zimo and Baiming Shui arrived at the bottom of the pit. It was clear that someone had painstakingly built this place. There were stone steps beneath their feet that paved the way and many ancient rocks in the surroundings that gave off an antiquated aura. At the bottom was a long tunnel. Thanks to his green lotus true body, Su Zimo led Baiming Shui forward. The longer they walked, the more moist the air ahead became. Furthermore, Su Zimo could clearly sense that the air in front of him was filled with immense vitality and rich spirit qi. Before long, his ears twitched and he could vaguely hear the sound of water currents. "There's a river hidden underground?" Su Zimo frowned slightly before shaking his head. The water current was not loud and did not seem like it was some underground river. He led Baiming Shui further forward. After a long time, their vision opened up and the two of them arrived at an extremely spacious hall. Both of them looked over. On both sides of the hall stood 9 stone statues that were 30 feet tall. Each of the stone statues held different weapons in their hands and they were solemn with their eyes closed, filled with dust. At the end of the 2 lines of stone statues was a gigantic pool surrounded by jade statues. Golden ripples surged within and emitted an extremely rich aura of life. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he exclaimed, "The primordial divine spring." "Ah!" Baiming Shui exclaimed as well. She had only heard Su Zimo mention it before. However, she had not expected that a primordial divine spring would be buried beneath Baiming Town. Su Zimo was shocked. This primordial divine spring was clearly different from the one beneath Gu Sect. Because there was no source beneath Gu Sect, the water was stagnant. In the middle of the pool was a continuous stream of golden bubbles. Clearly, there was a source beneath that gushed with divine spring continuously. This was a primordial divine spring that was comparable to the Dragon Bone Valley. Previously, Su Zimo was also curious about the secret guarded by the Baiming aristocratic family. However, he did not expect that the secret would be so shocking when it was revealed. A single primordial divine spring was enough to attract the greed of major factions and supersections. With this primordial divine spring, there was a high chance that the Baiming aristocratic family could attract countless experts and even nurture many paragons and monster incarnates to restore its glory of the ancient era. The primordial divine spring was way too precious. Up till now, the only place Su Zimo knew of was the Dragon Bone Valley. Buzz. Just as Su Zimo was pondering, a series of lights burst forth from the hall. The 18 stone statues opened their eyes one after another and shook off the dust on their bodies with a boom. Suddenly they came to life with a chilling killing intent in their eyes. "Anyone who trespasses into the Baiming territory will be killed without mercy." The 18 stone statues spoke at the same time. Swoosh. The stone statue at the front raised the gigantic sword in its hands and slashed down at Su Zimo. The sudden sight of the primordial divine spring stunned Su Zimo momentarily. Before he knew it, the gigantic sword had already descended. There was no time to dodge and he could only extend his palm, wanting to grab the gigantic sword. Boom. The gigantic sword collided against Su Zimo's palm with a loud bang. Su Zimo's body shuddered as though he was struck by lightning. He was sent flying by the gigantic sword and fell hundreds of feet away with a bloodied wound on his palm. Pust. Su Zimo gasped. The power of that stone statue was way too strong. It was definitely at the conjoint body realm. The gigantic sword in the hands of the stone statue did not seem to be a dermic weapon. However, the might of the gigantic sword was obvious if it could injure the Green Lotus true body. Could these conjoint body mighty figures of the ancient era have lived to this era? Suzimo was shocked. However, on second thought he shook his head again. No, even Mahayana patriarchs only have a lifespan of 100,000 years. These stone statues can't be human. Puppets. A thought flashed through Suzimo's mind as he came to a realization. They must be puppets. Only puppet stone statues could ignore time and survive from the ancient era till now. Swash. Another stone statue took a huge step forward and arrived before Suzimo in the blink of an eye. Swinging its arm, it raised its saber and slashed. Suzimo could only raise his arm to defend. Boom. His entire arm went numb and lost all feelings after it was struck by that saber. Suzimo was sent flying once more and smashed violently against the wall behind him, sliding down. These stone statue puppets are way too savage. Suzimo was secretly speechless. Although these stone statue puppets were not alive, the power they released was comparable to conjoint body mighty figures. If Suzimo's essence spirit was fine and he could use dermic powers, he would naturally have countless methods to slice the stone statue puppets into pieces. But now that his essence spirit was damaged, his combat strength was greatly reduced. He was helpless against the stone statue puppets. It was quite thoughtful of the Biming aristocratic family to arrange for 18 powerful stone statue puppets to guard the primordial divine spring and prevent it from being occupied by outsiders. However, Suzimo lamented internally. If 2 stone statues were already enough to pummel him, how was he going to survive after the 18 stone statues surrounded him at the same time? He had dominated his life and killed countless paragons and monster incarnates. He had never tasted defeat among his peers and was not even afraid of the primordial 9 races. Was he going to be killed by these lifeless rocks? If word of this were to spread, he would become the greatest joke in the cultivation world. The dignified Dao Lord Desolate Marshal, the #1 monster incarnate of history, was hammered to death by a group of stone statues that had been passed down from the ancient era. Watch out, master. Biming Shui reacted and exclaimed, lunging over with all her might to shield Suzimo. Don't. Suzimo spoke hurriedly. If the Green Lotus true body was already beaten to such a state by the stone statues, Biming Shui would not survive even if she had 10 lives if the gigantic sword and saber slashed down. Biming Shui closed her eyes and spread her arms to shield Suzimo. Coincidentally, a gigantic axe slashed down. Just as it was about to land on Biming Shui's head, it suddenly shifted and avoided her body, slashing onto the ground with a boom. The other stone statue puppets circled around Biming Shui and charged towards Suzimo once more. These stone statue puppets won't hurt anyone from the Biming clan. When they saw that, Suzimo and Biming Shui thought of that possibility at the same time. Biming Shui could only protect Suzimo and retreat continuously. However, there was only one of her. How could she protect Suzimo completely? In a moment of desperation she shouted, "Stop right there." Strange enough, when the stone statue puppets heard that, they froze on the spot and no longer attacked. Chapter 1373 Transformation. Chapter 1373, Transformation. Are those things so obedient? Suzimo was shocked. However, he understood right away. That's right, you've awakened the power in your bloodline. As such, you're considered as the owner of this place that is acknowledged by the Biming clan's ancestors. Since these stone puppets were left behind by your ancestors, they will naturally obey your orders upon sensing the aura of your bloodline. At that point, Biming Shui seemed to have an understanding as well. All of you stand there and don't move. This is my master. You're not allowed to hurt him. Biming Shui said to the 18 stone statue puppets. The 18 stone statue puppets closed their eyes one after another and the divine light in their eyes faded rapidly, sinking back into silence. Biming Shui helped Suzimo up hurriedly. I am fine. Suzimo shook his head. Although he was struck by the stone statue puppets a few times, his foundation was not injured and those were merely superficial wounds. Biming Shui said, Master, you once said that the primordial divine spring can heal your essence spirit's injuries. Hurry and go. I'll guard here with these stone statue puppets and not let anyone disturb you. All right. Suzimo pondered for a moment and did not decline. He felt emotional as he walked towards the primordial divine spring. It was because of Biming Shui that he could escape from the endless void. Later on, when he witnessed the experiences she had to go through, He had the intention of taking her in as a disciple and stayed in Biming Town for an entire 3 years. For the past 3 years, the life-severing curse had been pestering him and it was extremely painful. However, he did not leave because he wanted to sever his karma. To think that it was that action that gave him the chance to repair his essence spirit. Now that he thought about it, if he had left long ago to look for the primordial divine spring in order to recover from his injuries, he might not have had any outcome even in 30 or 300 years, let alone 3. Everything in the world worked in extremely mysterious ways. This was nothing more than the workings of karma. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo had already arrived beside the pool. He had once known about the existence of the primordial divine spring from his dragon true body. However, he could not conceal the shock on his face when he saw it personally. This divine spring was the most mystical thing in the world. Just by standing beside the pool and taking a deep breath, Su Zimo felt the vitality in his body surge, causing his essence spirit to feel better. Without hesitation, he leaped into the golden pool and laid down flat, sinking gradually. Endless life force surged into his body through his pores and streams of life essence entered his consciousness, washing through his essence spirit. It was warm and extremely comfortable to be enveloped by that rich life force. The green lotus true body felt itchy and numb, as though countless ants were crawling within his flesh and organs. Su Zimo's body sank into the pool and he bumped into a gigantic stone beneath him, causing it to give way. Perhaps due to his collision or some other reason, the round stone rolled to the side and Su Zimo sank into the pool smoothly. At that moment, the primordial divine spring was washing through the body, bloodline, bones, organs and even essence spirit of the green lotus true body. Su Zimo was not bothered by the stone in the pool. The nourishment of the primordial divine spring did not merely heal Su Zimo's essence spirit and cultivation realm. The green lotus true body underwent tremendous transformations inside out as well. Black things were spilling out of his pores like mud impurities. As for his bones, they were made with the lotus stem as the foundation and were supplemented by the treasures of many super sects. They were initially green gold. Under the baptism of the primordial divine spring, the green gold skeleton gradually underwent a transformation. It became increasingly transparent and crystalline like jade. The green color intensified while the dark gold color faded gradually. The black impurities that were washed away by the primordial divine spring were none other than the great treasures that Su Zimo refined and used to forge his bones. Those treasures were initially the destiny-dermic weapons of the titular disciples and were extremely powerful. But now, the green lotus true body took those melted treasures as impurities and purged them out of the body. The aura of every single bone of the green lotus true body became purer and more transparent, like a true lotus stem. His bones and bloodline underwent a qualitative change as well. Splash! A series of strange sounds echoed as his marrow flowed. As his bones grew and his marrow was swapped continuously, the bloodline that was derived grew stronger as well. In his consciousness, under the nourishment of the primordial divine spring, the creation lotus platform shone with rays of light that washed through the black-haired essence spirit continuously. Curses were the most evil. However, even that power could not defend against the primordial divine spring. Within his consciousness, resplendent light shone in a dazzling manner and the green mist that shrouded the black-haired essence spirit gradually melted. The power of the curse was gradually dispelled. The green lotus true body emitted a boundless vitality from inside out that intensified. The Shiman aristocratic family. More than 10 experts sat in the meeting hall. All of them were conjoint body mighty figures and the atmosphere was heavy. The fact that more than 10 conjoint body mighty figures were alarmed was proof of how serious this matter was. The person in the middle looked to be only middle-aged, but he had already cultivated to the late-stage conjoint body realm. With a burning gaze and the dignified aura of someone who had been in power for a long time, he was the master of the Shiman aristocratic family. Elder Chiu stood in the center of the hall. Desolate Marshal came to the south region and now, he has a direct conflict with the Dongfang as well as our families. Everyone, what do you think? The Shiman family master was calm as he took a sip of tea before saying slowly. To think that Dao Lord Desolate Marshal would be so lucky to be able to return alive after being attacked by D Fan and exiled into the void. Desolate Marshal is a jinx. Everywhere he goes, things won't be peaceful. Desolate Marshal has a great reputation in the North and Middle Continent. However, isn't it a little cocky and arrogant for him to want to challenge our two aristocratic families in the South region? An old man said slowly, "In my opinion, this matter can't be tolerated. We should kill Desolate Marshal to prevent future troubles." Elder Jianghu, that's a little inappropriate. Elder Chiu frowned. Although Desolate Marshal was a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord, how many conjoined body experts died in the Battle of Heaven and Earth Valley? The entire cultivation world was shocked. Now that Desolate Marshal has returned, he must be extremely domineering. In my opinion, it's not suitable for us to make an enemy out of him. Fu. Elder Jianghu smiled gently. Elder Chiu, you're old and you don't seem to be sharp anymore. From what you said, I'm certain that Desolate Marshal is definitely injured. What's the meaning of that? Elder Chiu frowned. Elder Jianghu said unhurriedly, according to your description, from the moment Desolate Marshal attacked till the end, he did not use any dermic arts and merely fought with his body. That's right. But what's wrong with that? Everyone knows that Desolate Marshal has a strong physique and extraordinary melee combat strength, Elder Chiu argued. Elder Jianghu shook his head. If it was just because he did not use any dermic arts, that would have been fine. Desolate Marshal did not even use dermic weapons, essence spirit secret skills, or even fly through the air. How could there be nothing strange about that? Elder Chiu frowned in deep thought. Chapter 1374, Decision. Chapter 1374, Decision. Elder Chiu was a conjoined body mighty figure after all and had lived for more than 10,000 years. Now that he had calmed down, he gradually snapped out of his stupor as well. Elder Jianghu said, I'm guessing that Desolate Marshal's essence spirit might be injured and he's unable to connect to heaven and earth. He might not even be able to release the most basic dermic arts. Is it that serious? Could Desolate Marshal be hiding his skills? The other conjoined body mighty figures discussed as well. Elder Chiu remained silent with a terrible expression. Actually, he knew that Elder Jianghu's guess was extremely likely to be true as well. This meant that he was merely scared off by Desolate Marshal. At the thought of that, he was naturally displeased and had a hateful expression. The Shiman family master did not say anything the entire time. Only now did he put down the teacup in his hands and said indifferently, there shouldn't be any problem with Elder Jianghu's speculation. In the Battle of Heaven and Earth Valley, a mighty figure of the witch race once self-destructed his essence spirit and released a life-severing curse to curse Su Zimo. Although he did not succeed, I'm sure that given Su Zimo's cultivation, there's no way he could have survived against the power of the life-severing curse unscathed. At that point, everyone present no longer had any doubts. Combining the information and many signs, it was almost certain that Desolate Marshal's essence spirit was injured. Furthermore, the injuries were not light. Brother Shiman, you're wise. Right then, a chuckle came from outside. A cultivator with fluttering robes walked in. Nobody present had noticed his existence previously. Greetings, Dongfang family master. The conjoined body mighty figures in the hall stood up one after another and bowed to the intruder. That cultivator was the master of the Dongfang aristocratic family. You're here too, brother Dongfang. The Shiman family master stood up and nodded with a smile, inviting, please take your seat. The Dongfang family master sat down beside the Shiman family master and went straight to the point. I won't beat around the bush. I'm here because of Desolate Marshal. What do you think, brother Dongfang? The Shiman family master asked. The Dongfang family master smirked coldly and merely said a single word, kill. The moment that word was said, the temperature in the hall seemed to drop significantly as a murderous aura spread with a chilling intent. The Shiman family master smiled. Desolate Marshal has been famous for a long time and is troublesome to deal with. This matter should be. Brother Shiman. The Dongfang family master interrupted. You've also deduced that Desolate Marshal's combat strength is greatly reduced with his essence spirit injured. This is a rare opportunity. Any conjoined body mighty figure can suppress him. If you're worried about accidents, we'll have all the experts in this hall head over together. Our Dongfang family also has more than 10 conjoined body mighty figures waiting outside right now to act at any moment. The Shiman family master smacked his lips. This Tao Lord Desolate Marshal is easy to deal with his essence spirit injured. I'm worried about the other Desolate Marshal. The other one? The Dongfang family master frowned slightly. The Shiman family master said in a deep voice, the battle at Heaven and Earth Valley shocked Tianhuang mainland. Desolate Marshal has two true bodies. The one in the south region currently is one of them, But don't forget, he has another dragon true body. At the mention of the dragon true body, there was a hint of fear in the eyes of many conjoint body experts in the hall. Although cultivators of the three aristocratic families did not head to Heaven and Earth Valley, everyone was still extremely shocked when they heard the details of that battle. Legend has it that Desolate Marshall's dragon clone was even more terrifying. Even among the primordial races, many conjoint body experts were killed by the dragon true body. The Dongfang family master frowned. That dragon true body has already been exiled to the void. How can he still be alive? That's hard to say. The Shiman family master said, since this true body of Desolate Marshall survived, there's no guarantee that his dragon true body can't survive as well. If we fail to kill both true bodies of Desolate Marshall, it'll cause huge trouble for our family clans. If it was only the Green Lotus true body, the Shiman family master would naturally not fear it. If he had to kill, so be it. However, what he was concerned about was Desolate Marshall's dragon true body. Does that mean that you're not intending to attack, Brother Shiman? The Dongfang family master asked. The Shiman family master shook his head. We have to think about this matter at length and wait and see first. Actually, the Shiman family master had other plans. In his opinion, Desolate Marshall had offended too many sects and factions. As long as news of Desolate Marshall's location was spread, experts of the super sects would naturally hunt him down without them even making a move. In fact, it might even alarm the primordial races. They could kill him with the hands of others. The Shiman family was not willing to provoke a huge trouble like Desolate Marshall. Right then, a commotion came from outside. Some cultivators were speeding over with their clothes fluttering, looking extremely hurried. Reportee. The cultivator shouted from afar before he even arrived. Before long, the cultivator arrived in the hall with an excited expression and shouted, Family Master, there's news from Baiming Town. An ancient seal hidden in Baiming Town was activated by Baiming Shui. Now, a passage leading underground has appeared in Baiming Town. There's a high chance that within it, there's a... At that point, the cultivator suddenly paused as though he could not believe it. What? The two masters of the Shiman and Dongfang families asked at the same time. Both of them had already thought of a possibility. The secret guarded by the Baiming aristocratic family had appeared. It might be a primordial divine spring. The cultivator said. Psst. Gasps could be heard from the hall. The masters of the Shiman and Dongfang families stood up with shocked expressions. The Shiman family master asked hurriedly, Is this true? The cultivator replied, Some Baiming clansmen went down bravely to take a look and said that there was a golden pool. Indeed. The two family masters exchanged glances. Both could tell of the excitement and greed in their eyes. What a surprise. The Shiman family master sighed. Legend has it that the Baiming aristocratic family has always been guarding a huge secret from the ancient era. To think that it would be a primordial divine spring. The divine spring appeared in this generation. Unfortunately, the Baiming clan has already declined. The Dongfang family master sneered with a cold expression. The Shiman family master took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, Everyone in the hall, follow me to Baiming Town to retrieve the divine spring. Anyone who stands in our way will be killed without mercy. Initially, he was wary of Desolate Marshall's dragon true body. But now that he heard the news of the primordial divine spring, even if he knew that his dragon true body was still alive, he had to snatch the divine spring. The primordial divine spring was worth the risk for the Shiman aristocratic family. Furthermore, there was a high chance that Desolate Marshall's dragon true body was already dead. At the same time, the Shiman family master sent a voice transmission to a conjoint body mighty figure with his spirit consciousness and instructed. The conjoint body mighty figure retreated secretly. Brother Shiman, I'm afraid your Shiman family won't be able to occupy the divine spring alone. The Dongfang family master smiled gently. Of course. At that time, our two aristocratic families can discuss how to divide it evenly. As for the Nangong family, the Shiman family's master paused for a moment. That will depend on the Nangong family's decision. If he's on our side, he might still have a share in the divine spring. If not. Although the Dongfang family master did not continue, his meaning was clear. Chapter 1375 Elder Lan Tian. Chapter 1375, Elder Lan Tian. The Nangong Aristocratic Family. In the meeting hall, the Nangong family master sat in the middle. Apart from many conjoint body mighty figures, there was also a void reversion. It was Nangong Ling. Under normal circumstances, Nangong Ling was not qualified to participate in such an event given his cultivation realm. However, the discussion at this moment was unique and involved Tao Lord Desolate Marshal. In the entire Nangong aristocratic family, Nangong Ling was probably the only one who knew Tao Lord Desolate Marshal the best. Everyone please speak. The Nangong family master said slowly, since Desolate Marshal isn't dead and furthermore, he's Linger's granduncle master, the Nangong family should stay out of this matter. However, we just received news that a primordial divine spring might have been discovered in Baiming Town. The Dongfang and Shiman aristocratic families have already set off. This matter is worth discussing. A middle-aged burly man stood up with a ferocious expression and shouted, "Family master, what are you waiting for? You must definitely fight for the primordial divine spring." That's right. Another person said, "The primordial divine spring is way too precious and is the rarest treasure in the world. If our family can obtain the help of the divine spring, our overall strength will double at least." But, the primordial divine spring is a treasure guarded by the Baiming aristocratic family. If we snatch it from them, another person hesitated. "What are you afraid of?" The middle-aged burly man who first spoke pouted. "The Baiming clan has long declined. It's as good as the primordial divine spring having no owner." "Don't forget about Desolate Marshal." The person reminded, "He is Baiming Shui's master. We will definitely be on bad terms with Desolate Marshal if we want to fight for the divine spring." "So what if he's Tao Lord Desolate Marshal? His essence spirit is damaged and he's already injured. His combat strength is greatly reduced. What's there to be afraid of?" The middle-aged burly man sneered. "However, Tao Lord Desolate Marshal has another dragon true body that's currently missing. It's said that his dragon true body is even stronger in combat. If we offend him because of this and incur the wrath of the dragon true body, wouldn't we stand to lose more than we would stand to gain? After so many years there's no news of the dragon true body. It must have flushed into emptiness after floating for such a long time in the endless void. Even if the dragon true body is alive with the super sects and the primordial races in front of us, he won't even get a chance to reach us." In the hall, everyone argued endlessly. A long time later, the Nangong family master raised his hand slowly and exerted a push gesture. The hall gradually fell silent. "Nangong Ling, what do you think?" the Nangong family's master asked. Nangong Ling stood at the end of the hall and could not speak the entire time. After all, the experts in the hall were his seniors, even his ancestors. Without the family master's question, it was inappropriate for him to take the initiative to interject. It was only then that Nangong Ling stood out and said in a deep voice, "Family master, I don't recommend becoming enemies with Tao Lord Desolate Marshal." "What? Even if our three aristocratic families join forces, we have to fear a single Dharma characteristic Tao Lord?" The middle-aged burly man sneered, "Nangong Ling, don't side with Desolate Marshal just because he's your granduncle master. Don't forget your surname and bloodline." Nangong Ling was not annoyed by the middle-aged burly man's reprimand and merely shook his head. Tao Lord Desolate Marshal is different from other Dharma characteristic Tao Lords. What difference can there be? He merely possesses three supreme Dharma characteristics. The middle-aged burly man was still somewhat disdainful. Furthermore, his essence spirit is damaged. He can't even release the most basic dharmic arts, let alone his heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. Without witnessing it personally, it's impossible to imagine how terrifying Tao Lord Desolate Marshal is. Nangong Ling said, "How tragic was the battle at Heaven and Earth Valley? Wasn't that lesson enough?" After a brief pause he continued, "Furthermore, I want to remind you elders that since there's a primordial divine spring, there's a high chance that Tao Lord Desolate Marshal's injuries will recover completely. At that time, even conjoint body mighty figures might not be able to suppress him." Suddenly the hall fell silent. Many conjoint body mighty figures revealed wary expressions. The middle-aged burly man clenched his fist gently and said coldly, "What are you afraid of? At the most, we'll just get a half-martial ancestor of our family clan. Even if Desolate Marshal's injuries are healed, we can kill him. What if Dao Lord Desolate Marshal enters the conjoint body realm? Nangong Ling asked again. That's impossible. The middle-aged burly man waved his hand. How long has this Desolate Marshal only been in the Dharma characteristic realm for? More than 100 years? He's definitely daydreaming if he wants to advance to the conjoint body realm right now. Furthermore, the conjoint body realm is to fuse heaven and earth Dharma characteristics into one's body. Desolate Marshal possesses 3 supreme Dharma characteristics. Although he's incomparably strong and can sweep through every one of the same cultivation realm, there's an equivalent balance of good and bad fortune for everything in this world. If he wants to fuse the 3 supreme Dharma characteristics into his body won't be able to withstand it and he'll explode. Advancement to the conjoint body realm was not completely safe without risk for cultivators. The stronger the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, the greater the danger of fusing with the body. However, Su Zimo had 3 supreme Dharma characteristics. This was unprecedentedly dangerous. In truth, the cultivators in the hall did not know that in the current generation, there was a person who had successfully fused 4 supreme Dharma characteristics into his body. However, that person was far-sighted and planned everything with a shocking spirit. He schemed against all the experts in the world and was the biggest beneficiary of the Battle of Heaven and Earth Valley. The Nangong family master nodded as well. With the help of the primordial divine spring, it's possible for Desolate Marshal's injuries to recover completely. However, it's definitely impossible for him to advance to the conjoint body realm. The middle-aged burly man said, "Family master, give the order. If we attack now we can still take our share of the loot. If we're too late and the divine spring is controlled by the Dongfang and Shimin aristocratic families, it'll be too difficult for us to fight for it." The Nangong family master frowned and was still hesitant. What's with the crowd? Right then an old voice sounded from outside the hall. An old man with a dragon head walking stick walked in stealthily. He looked like he was in his twilight years and could die at any moment. "Greetings, Grand Elder." Everyone in the hall stood up and bowed respectfully. Even the Nangong family master walked down from the main seat and whispered, "Elder Lan Tian, you're here." Anyone who could be a Grand Elder of the 3 aristocratic families were all half-martial ancestors. Although Elder Lan Tian seemed like he was at the end of his lifespan with his blood qi deteriorating, in reality, he had already lived for 20,000 years. Everyone knew that conjoint body mighty figures had a lifespan of 20,000 years. Strictly speaking, even half-martial ancestors were still at the conjoint body realm and had not truly entered the Mahayana realm. However, half-martial ancestors could live beyond 20,000 years. With Elder Lan Tian stepping in, even if Desolate Marshal's injuries are healed, we have nothing to fear. The middle-aged burly man shouted with a delighted expression. Hee hee. Elder Lan Tian leaned on his walking stick and laughed before saying slowly, "The Nangong family will wait to watch and see first." Grand Elder. The middle-aged burly man could not help but say, "If the Dongfang and Shimin aristocratic families get their hands on it first, our Nangong family might never get the chance to obtain the primordial divine spring ever again." "There's no need to discuss this, I have decided," Elder Lan Tian said indifferently. There were no further objections in the hall. Even the Nangong family master could not disobey the orders of a half-martial ancestor. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.